Chapter 2146. This was a classic case of being unrewarded for one's good intentions. After all, Long Luo had saved Cheng Gaoya, yet she had committed such an ungrateful act. Cheng Gaoya shut her eyes. After a long pause, she opened them again and stared straight at Long Luo. To us humans, spiritual beasts like you serve us. Isn't that so? Why should the Dragon Clan hide their blood essence and not allow us humans to use it? You won't have a good ending for your selfish actions. These members of the ancestral Dragon Clan would not let her off anyway, so she might as well speak her mind. Her eyes were filled with hatred. It was as if Long Luo, who had saved her life and had been imprisoned by her, owed her a debt of gratitude. Humph! The clan leader's features were ashen. The Dragon Clan is also a living being. Since when have we fallen to the point of serving you humans? Who do you think you are to order the Dragon Clan around? Long Yen, kill this woman first. We'll deal with Feng Yongqing and the others later. Cheng Gaoya's body stiffened and she gritted her teeth. Even if you kill me, you'll all die a horrible death. Her tone became shrill and her eyes were filled with a blood-red light. Long Yan's body flashed and he appeared in front of Cheng Gaoya. His fist landed heavily on Cheng Gaoya's body with a loud bang. His fist pierced through her chest and killed her on the spot. Cheng Wuyan had not said a word. Even though he had planned to kill Cheng Gaoya with his own hands, who would have thought that Cheng Gaoya would have such bad luck and run into the ancestral Dragon Clan? Hence, he did not make a move and only stared calmly at Cheng Gaoya, who was lying in a pool of blood. You reap what you sow. Cheng Wuyan turned away and did not spare Cheng Gaoya another glance. At the same time, the members of the ancestral Dragon Clan turned their attention towards Feng Yongqing and the others. Hee. Feng Yongqing laughed icily. Actually, that little girl was right about one thing. Spiritual beasts exist to serve humans. However, the Dragon Clan's temper is too strong. If you had submitted to humans earlier, perhaps many things would not have happened. The clan leader clenched his fists tightly as a mocking smile appeared on his face. The Dragon Clan has never submitted to anyone, especially to you. In fact, many years ago, Feng Yongqing and the others had wanted to join forces to make the Dragon Clan submit to them. However, this old man's character was as stubborn as a donkey, so they had failed. Lady Yun, young Master Xiao, let's join forces and kill them. The Dragon Clan leader relaxed his tightly clenched fists. His eyes were cold and stern. He subconsciously walked to Yun Luofeng and Yun Zhao's side and faced off against the three of them. Just as the battle was about to break out with a boom, the ground trembled. The force of the trembling was very strong, as if something was trying to break through the ground and escape. Mother! Yun Chutian hurriedly held Yun Luofeng's hand. Tianer is scared. Boom! Boom, boom, boom. The sound of an earthquake instantly spread throughout the continent, causing everyone to panic. Yun Luofeng's brows furrowed. Yun Zhao's expression did not change as he held the girl's shoulder and protected her in his arms. Be careful. I feel like something is about to appear. His voice was very low, and there was a hint of heaviness in it. Chapter 2147. Boom! At this moment, the entire ground split open and a huge winged fire dragon rushed out of the ground. Huge flames soared into the sky and covered the entire horizon with a layer of raging flames. Roar! The dual-winged fire dragon let out a loud roar, and the entire sky was torn apart in an instant. Its eyes were very ferocious, and it looked at the crowd below with a fierce gaze. Winged fire dragon? The clan leader's expression changed greatly and his eyes were filled with fear. Why would such an ancient creature appear here? At this moment, the winged fire dragon had yet to move. It hovered in the void and its voice was very sorrowful, as if it was calling for its companions. Yun Luofeng was silent for a moment. When I first came to the 7 continents, I heard that there were ancient beasts suppressed under the 7 continents. If I'm not wrong, these ancient beasts are from the Winged Fire Dragon clan. The Winged Fire Dragon had existed since ancient times. How powerful was it? Could be said that the power of a Winged Fire Dragon was comparable to the 9-winged Sky Dragon that Yun Luofeng had encountered before. Moreover, there were 7 winged fire dragons suppressed under the 7 continents. Even Yun Luofeng's expression darkened, let alone the others. But what I don't understand is why the winged fire dragon suddenly revived and broke free from its shackles. It must be because the spirit god continent collapsed, causing a large amount of spiritual power to flow into the 7 continents. This must have caused the winged fire dragon to revive. When the clan leader said this, his lips trembled slightly and his eyes revealed his fear. Although the ancestral dragon clan had lived for a very long time, they were still not as powerful as the ancient beasts. Against ancient beasts he had no other choice. The winged fire dragon can cross an entire continent in an instant. If this winged fire dragon appears, it means that the other winged fire dragons have also revived. Yun Luofeng looked at Yun Xiao. Yun Xiao, I have no confidence in this battle, but I have no choice but to fight. Yun Xiao gently held Yun Luofeng's hand, her expression determined. I'll accompany you. To accompany her in life and to accompany her in death. Roar. The winged fire dragon's roar grew louder. Soon, they could feel a scorching heat coming from all directions. The heat was like the sun and seemed to have a power that could roast them into ashes. Be careful. Yun Xiao suddenly pulled Yun Luofeng and Yun Chutian to the side. A beam of fire shot down from the sky and landed on the ground where they were just standing. A bottomless pit appeared on the ground. Yun Xiao hugged Yun Luofeng tightly. At this moment, Yun Luofeng could feel his back drenched in sweat. His clothes clung tightly to his back. Ah! A heart-wrenching scream was heard. When everyone turned around, they saw Feng Yongqing covering his eyes. My eyes, my eyes! Feng Yongqing. Wei Xiong and Wei Yongqing were shocked and quickly walked in front of Feng Yongqing. However, in the face of an ancient ferocious beast like the dual-winged fire dragon, there was nothing they could do. Wow! Some of the more cowardly people immediately burst into tears. They curled up in fear and stared at the twin-winged fire dragon in the void with fearful eyes. At this moment, the sky was burning with raging flames. It was so red that it looked as if it had been dyed by fresh blood. Roar! At this moment, the winged fire dragons in the sky finally moved. Flames rose from their mouths, and with a boom, they charged towards the ground. Chapter 21:48. Everyone raised their heads to look at the flame, and the despair on their faces was reflected in the light. Whoosh! The white light rose up and was swallowed by the flame. At that moment, it was as if time had stopped, and the entire ground was calm. The winged fire dragon looked at the empty ground, then at Feng Yongqing and the other 2 who were lying on the ground. Its eyes were filled with confusion. It seemed to be wondering where the group of humans had gone to within the illusory array. The sky was blue, the water was clear, and the environment was quiet. The clan leader and the rest were dumbfounded. They did not understand what had happened. They had thought that they were going to die for sure, but they were suddenly transported to another space. This was too unreal. The clan leader recovered from his shock and looked at Yun Luofeng in astonishment. Miss Yun, what is this place? It was clearly, this is an array, similar to your spirit god continent. Yun Luofeng's eyes darkened slightly. You will be very safe here. I want to go out and fight those winged fire dragons. Miss Yun, the winged fire dragons are much stronger than you think. If you go out, you will definitely not be their match. The clan leader shook his head helplessly and sighed softly. Yun Luofeng's lips curled up. I have no other choice. I still have my family on this continent. I should thank that winged fire dragon just now for attracting the rest of my kind here. Otherwise, I would have to worry about my family. However, even though the winged fire dragon is still here, he will leave sooner or later if I don't appear. When that happens, my family will be in danger. So I can only go out and fight. This was all she could do. If something really happened to her and she was gone, the illusory array would naturally disappear, and the people inside would still not be in any danger. Mother, Tian'er wants to go with you. Yun Chutian grabbed Yun Luofeng's hand. She was afraid, but she forced herself to calm down and looked at Yun Luofeng with her big, watery eyes. No, this time. Yun Luofeng rejected her without hesitation. Mother, Tian'er will be obedient and won't cause trouble. Yun Chu-tian was afraid that if he let go, he would never be able to see his mother again. Just as Yun Luofeng was about to say something, Yun Zhao's voice rang out beside him, "Bring her along." Hearing this, Yun Luofeng was startled. But since Yun Xiao said this, then he definitely had his reasons. Moreover, she believed in Yun Xiao. Therefore, she no longer refused and nodded slightly. "If there is any danger later, I will throw you in directly." This was her bottom line. An innocent smile appeared on Yun Chutian's face. Her face was so cute that it looked like it was carved from jade, and her big eyes were bright and moving. After saying this, Yun Luofeng's thoughts moved, and he, Yun Xiao, and Yun Chutian once again appeared where they were before. At this point, the ground was scorched and gave off a burnt smell. All the trees were destroyed, and even the corpses of Feng Yongqing and the other two were almost burnt to ashes. With the hatred between her and Feng Yongqing at that time, she naturally would not care about them. Therefore, under the attack of the dual-winged fire dragon, they had already lost their lives. Roar! The winged fire dragon, who was about to leave, stopped when it saw Yun Luofeng and the others. It let out a low roar from its throat, and its slightly raised eyes were filled with arrogance and bloodlust. Chapter 2149. Then, a winged fire dragon swooped down towards Yun Luofeng and the others. As an ancient beast, the winged sky dragon naturally cared a lot about its reputation. It simply disdained to attack these human ants together. Thus, only one winged fire dragon charged towards the two of them while the others waited quietly in the sky. Yun Luofeng heaved a sigh of relief when she saw this. If all the winged fire dragons attacked together, she and Yun Xiao would not be able to handle them. However, even so, a winged fire dragon was still very powerful. Its body carried a scorching heat that would cause the enemy's fighting power to decrease slightly. "Yun Xiao, we can't go on like this. There are a total of 7 winged fire dragons here. With our strength, I'm afraid we won't be able to hold on for long." Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao fought side by side, while Yun Chutian hid far away to watch the battle. Just as she was thinking of a countermeasure, she suddenly saw a figure appear in the sky not far away. It was a man who looked like a banished immortal. He was so beautiful that he looked like he had walked out of a painting. He stood not far away and quietly watched Yun Luofeng and Yun Chutian fight the winged fire dragons. "Zhu Qian." Yun Luofeng narrowed her eyes. "Why was he here?" "Looks like you've already found the thing I left for you." Feng Jin's lips curled into a faint smile. His gaze swept across the terrified Yun Chutian, then turned to Yun Luofeng. "However, why didn't you use it? If you use it, these winged fire dragons won't be a problem for you." Yun Luofeng was struggling to deal with the winged fire dragons. Now that she heard Zhu Qian's words, she frowned. "You've recovered your memory? Also, what is the thing you left for me?" "Mo Chenqing's death has indeed helped me recover my memory." Feng Jin smiled faintly. "It's just that I don't want to become Zhu Qian. I'm just Feng Jin. As for what I left for you, aren't you asking the obvious?" Feng Jin's gaze turned to Yun Chutian again. He looked at the girl's pale little face and said, "She is what I left for you." Although Yun Luofeng had already guessed this, her heart skipped a beat when she heard Feng Jin's words. She did not think that Feng Jin mentioning Yun Chutian was a good thing. "Be careful." Yun Xiao saw that Yun Luofeng was in a daze and hurriedly stood in front of her to block the attack for her. Her brows furrowed slightly as she said, "Leave this to me. If you have any questions, you can ask him." Hearing this, Yun Luofeng raised his head and looked at the man in the air. "What is your intention in giving her to me?" Feng Jin was silent for a moment. "This little girl is not human. It was a coincidence that I picked her up and locked her up. My goal was to keep her for my future successor. Yun Luofeng, now that you are my successor, I can tell you that this little girl was born from the purest spiritual energy of the world. Her heart is the most precious essence of the world. If you consume her heart, you can immediately increase your strength to become a true god." A true god was the dream of many. Back then, Yun Luofeng had also wanted to break through to real god. But if the price to pay to break through to the true god realm was to consume Yun Chutian's heart, then she would rather not break through. "Zhu Qian, Since you said that her heart could make a breakthrough to real God, why didn't you use it? Chapter 2150. Zhu Qian found Yun Chutian but left Yun Chutian to him. What was his intention? Feng Jin smiled. That smile was filled with sorrow and helplessness. Perhaps it's because I don't want to become a true god. Becoming a true god gives me endless life, but I'm alone. I might as well reincarnate. At this moment, Yun Chutian was so frightened that she burrowed into Yun Luofeng's arms. Her eyes were filled with fear as she buried her head tightly in her mother's arms. Yun Luofeng sensed the fear in Yun Chutian's heart. She caressed her back gently and looked up at Feng Jin in the void. Other than this method, is there no other way to defeat these winged fire dragons? Feng Jin glanced at Yun Luofeng but did not speak. Seeing this, Yun Luofeng did not ask anymore. She hugged the trembling Yun Chutian tightly and said firmly, "Tianer, don't worry. I won't enjoy your heart." Yun Chutian raised her jade-like face, which was covered in tears. "Really? Really? Mother will never lie to you." Yun Luofeng looked down with a gentle expression. Hearing this, Yun Chutian could no longer control her emotions and burst into tears. "Mother, Tianer doesn't want to die. Tianer wants to be with mother and little brother. I really don't want to die." No matter how special Yun Chutian was, she was still a child. No child could remain indifferent in the face of death. Roar! The winged fire dragons in the void were getting impatient. Their tempers had also become irritable. Yun Luofeng looked at Yun Xiao, who was fighting with the winged fire dragons, and her expression darkened. "Have you decided?" Feng Jin lowered his head to look at Yun Luofeng, his voice calm. "Yes." Yun Luofeng held Yun Chutian's little hand and took a step forward. "I won't sacrifice someone's life to save myself." Feng Jin hesitated for a moment. She's not human, but she has emotions. She can cry, she can be afraid, and she can feel pain. Yun Luofeng raised her head gently. "So, in my heart, she's no different from a real human. I would rather fight to the death than sacrifice her." Yun Chutian's body stiffened. She turned her head to look at Yun Luofeng, who was beside her. Her teary eyes were covered by a thin layer of mist, and her pale little face looked very pitiful. She remembered. She seemed to have been born at the beginning of chaos. When those greedy humans discovered her usefulness, they tried to obtain her heart to achieve their own goals. All these years, she had been on the run. After that, she was picked up by a human. That human did not harvest her heart, but locked her up. This trial lasted for 1,000 years. For 1,000 years, she stayed in an empty cell, so much so that her earliest memories had faded. She, who could speak before, had forgotten human language because there was no one to talk to, until her appearance. Yun Chutian's tears increased and covered her entire face. She slowly closed her eyes. Over the years, she had met far too many people, and those people's greedy faces were as clear as day. However, only this woman in front of her would decisively reject such temptation. Then, for the only warmth in this world, was she willing to sacrifice herself? Suddenly, Yun Chutian opened her eyes and loosened her grip on Yun Luofeng's hand. She thought she was willing. Chapter 2151. "Tianer, wait for me here." Yun Luofeng let go of Yun Chutian's hand and said gently, "We'll be able to go home soon." Yun Chutian nodded with a cute smile on her delicate face. "Little brother is still waiting for us at home, right?" "Yes." Yun Luofeng stroked Yun Chutian's little head and kissed her little face. "Be good and wait here for me to come back." After saying this, Yun Luofeng had already turned around and quickly walked to Yun Zhao's side. He quickly held his long sword in his hand and stared coldly at the winged fire dragon in the sky. "Yun Xiao, we need to get rid of her as soon as possible. The other winged fire dragons are getting impatient. If this continues, they might attack us at the same time." Yun Luofeng summoned his dragon scale armor and spoke with a serious expression. However, just as she finished speaking, the winged fire dragon in the sky was already impatient. It let out an angry roar and charged towards Yun Luofeng and the others below. The entire horizon was illuminated red by the flames. Feng be careful. Yun Xiao reacted quickly and pulled Yun Luofeng into her arms. Her strong and tough body faced the winged fire dragons that were charging towards them. Boom! The flames crashed down and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of Yun Xiao's mouth. He still firmly protected Yun Luofeng in his arms and used his back to block all the danger. Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng felt as if he was being pricked by needles as he watched Yun Xiao's increasingly pale face. Tears flowed from the corners of his eyes. Yun Xiao, enough? It was really enough. Yun Xiao lowered her gaze. Her black eyes were filled with endless gentleness. It was as if the flames that were crashing towards him did not cause him any pain. That's right, to him it was enough as long as Yun Luofeng was alive. In this life he was only willing to live for her. Feng the man's voice was low and hoarse. A trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Don't cry. If you cry, my heart will feel even worse. Yun Xiao, move aside. Yun Luofeng wanted to struggle out of Yun Xiao's embrace, but the man held her tighter and tighter, not giving her a chance to escape. From the first time I saw you, I was attracted to you. Later on, I found out that it was because our physiques complemented each other. I admit that I stayed by your side in the beginning because you gave me a very comfortable feeling. You could even alleviate the pain of my breakthrough. Yun Xiao's lips curled into a smile. His smile was still so gentle, and his embrace seemed to transform into a myriad of mountains and rivers to embrace her. But then, Yun Xiao's voice choked for a moment before she continued. I was captured by you. Yun Xiao used the word, captive. Indeed, from the moment he met her and fell in love with her, he was destined to become her captive, unable to escape this cage for the rest of his life. But he was willing to endure it. No matter if it's your aggressiveness, arrogance, or arrogance, it's all what I love. In this lifetime, Yun Xiao, have no regrets in loving you. Bang! The power of the 7 dual-winged fire dragons converged in the sky and crashed down with a loud crash. Under this powerful attack, Yun Xiao only gave a muffled grunt, his arms still tightly protecting the woman in his embrace. If you're fine, then I can rest easy. Yun Xiao. Chapter 2152. Tears flowed down Yun Luofeng's face. She raised her head to look at the man's increasingly pale face and closed her eyes in pain. Boom! Yun Xiao's body suddenly fell down. His body firmly pressed down on the woman beneath him. Even though he had fallen, he still used his body to block all the incoming damage for her. Not far away, Yun Chutian stared blankly at Yun Xiao, who had fallen to the ground. Her little face was also unknowingly covered in tears, but her spirited eyes were unusually calm. Yun Xiao. The attacks in the sky were still ongoing. Yun Luofeng was protected by Yun Xiao's body, so she was not hurt at all. However, she felt that the man's breathing was getting heavier and heavier. If this continued, she was afraid she would lose him forever. Yun Xiao, move aside. For some reason, Yun Xiao was stronger than anyone else at this time. Yun Luofeng could not push away the man who was pressing down on her no matter how hard she tried. This filled her heart with despair. Mother. At this time, a childish voice rang in Yun Luofeng's ears. When she raised her head, she saw Yun Chutian's jade-like face. At this moment, Yun Chutian had a smile on her face. Her smile was a little mysterious, but it made Yun Luofeng's heart tremble. Tanner, leave quickly. It's dangerous here. If it was only one double-winged fire dragon, perhaps she and Yun Xiao could fight it together. However, there were 7 of them now. The power of the 7 fire dragons gathered in the sky as if it could destroy the world. Even if Yun Chutian was only affected by this power, his soul would immediately scatter. This time, Yun Chutian did not listen to Yun Luofeng. She pursed her pink and tender lips. Mother, will you remember Tianer forever? Tianer? Yun Luofeng was stunned and frowned. What do you want? Mother, Tianer has already remembered the past. Yun Chutian tilted her little head and smiled with tears in her eyes. Thank you, Mother, for giving Tianer such a beautiful memory. This is the happiest period of time since Tianer can remember. Tianer will always remember Mother. Also, When little brother can remember, mother must tell little brother that Tian likes him very much. If there's a next life, Tian still wants to be mother's daughter. Yun Tian closed her eyes slightly. Her entire life flashed before her eyes in slow motion. Ever since she met Yun Luofeng, all of her memories were filled with pain. He had spent his days being bullied and hunted, but only Yun Luofeng could bring her happiness. Tian. Seeing that Tian had already taken out a dagger, Yun Luofeng's face turned pale, and he shouted sternly, "Put that dagger down immediately!" Yun Tian opened her eyes. She glanced at Yun Luofeng, then at the winged fire dragons in the sky. She ruthlessly stabbed the dagger into her heart. Tian. Yun Luofeng's voice was heart-wrenching and lung-splitting. Her body began to tremble, but Yun Xiao had already lost consciousness. She, on the other hand, was firmly protected by Yun Xiao's body, unable to move. Therefore, he could only watch helplessly as Yun Tian pulled out his heart. Yun Tian's heart was very special. It wasn't bloody like a human's. Instead, it emitted a bright luster like a gem. But, looking at Yun Tian's heart, Yun Luofeng seemed to feel that her own heart had also been dug out. Her face was already covered in tears, and her expression was one of pain. "Mother." Yun Tian's face was pale as she staggered towards Yun Luofeng. She half-knelt beside her, her long eyelashes gently drooping. Tian is very afraid of death, but Tian is even more afraid of father and mother leaving. Chapter 2153. Thus, she had willingly sacrificed herself. Tian. Yun Luofeng gently closed her eyes. At this moment, she felt something ice-cold placed on her lips. At the same time, a faint wave of spiritual energy flowed into her body, bringing with it a faint smell of blood. Boom! In an instant, a blood-red light rose from Yun Luofeng's body. That light illuminated the entire sky in a blood-red color, as if the sun was shining high up in the sky. Then, an illusory throne gradually appeared in the void. This throne was also red, a gorgeous and noble red that was incomparably grand. This time, there was no lightning, however. Because of this strange phenomenon, it attracted the impulse of the entire mainland. That bright red throne emitted a dense coercion, causing everyone who faced it to feel a sense of respect. The red light lasted for a long time, so long that it reached the end of the world. Then, it gradually dissipated. Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng slowly crawled up from the ground. She took out a stalk of spiritual medicine and fed it to Yun Xiao. Then, she raised her eyes to look at the winged fire dragons in the void. "Go to sleep in peace. Once I'm done with these winged fire dragons, we'll go home." In the void, when the winged fire dragons saw Yun Luofeng's breakthrough, they were scared out of their wits and wanted to turn and run. However, they had only taken a few steps when they were blocked by a snow-white figure. Feng Jin stood quietly not too far away and looked at the peerless woman in snow-white robes. His face lit up with a gentle smile. "There's only one way to use this little girl's power to break through. That is, she must willingly hand over her heart. Otherwise, even if you kill her 1,000 times, you won't be able to find where her heart is." This was also the reason why Yun Tian was able to survive the pursuit of so many people. As long as her heart was still there, she would not die. More importantly, unless she was willing, even if you cut her into 8 pieces, you wouldn't be able to find where her heart was hidden. Trying to escape? Yun Luofeng stood in front of the group of dual-winged fire dragons, his face cold, his eyes filled with rage. "You all injured Yun Xiao, and even caused Tian's death, and now you want to escape? Even if I tear you into 1,000 pieces, it will not be enough to quell the anger in my heart. If not for them, Yun Xiao wouldn't have been injured and Tian wouldn't have died. Therefore, all of this was caused by this group of dual-winged fire dragons." Roar! The winged fire dragon roared and immediately scattered in all directions. This way, Yun Luofeng could only deal with one winged fire dragon. He could not kill them all. However, in the face of their escape, Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a cold smile, and he stood there calmly. Then, she gently closed her eyes. In an instant, her silhouette immediately split apart, and countless white silhouettes filled the void. Her white robes fluttered in the wind, and it was as beautiful as a painting. Those clones surrounded all the winged fire dragons, turning the void into a cage, making it hard for them to escape. Roar! The winged fire dragon was forced into a corner and spat out a mouthful of angry flames. Who knew that the flames would directly penetrate Yun Luofeng's body? Very quickly, Yun Luofeng's body returned to its original state. All of the doppelgangers closed their eyes and held hands in the void. At that moment, flames ignited on the bodies of the doppelgangers and shot towards the winged fire dragon that was surrounded by flames. Chapter 2154. After a while, in the sky, the wails of the double-winged fire dragon could be heard. Since you guys are fire dragons, I'll burn you to death with fire. This way, I'll make you lose all your dignity. You won't even die honorably. After saying this, Yun Luofeng descended from the sky. She squatted down and picked up Yun Chu-tian, who was on the ground. Her heart ached. Tian-er, why are you so silly? Yun Chu-tian forced a smile. Because you're Tian-er's mother, and you're the person who treats Tian-er the best in this world. Back then, she didn't know what family affection was. Now that she had enjoyed it, how could she give it up? Tian-er. Yun Chu-tian's figure became more and more transparent, as though he would disappear from Yun Luofeng's hands at any time. Yun Luofeng hugged her small body tightly as tears flowed from his eyes. Tian-er, you won't die. I'll definitely find a way to save you. Little Mo, come out now. As soon as he finished speaking, Little Mo had already appeared beside Yun Luofeng. He pursed his thin lips tightly, and his eyes were filled with helplessness. Little Mo, quickly tell me, how can I help Tian-er? Yun Luofeng hugged Yun Chu-tian's transparent body tightly, his voice trembling. Quickly tell me, will my heart be of any use to her? Master! Little Mo's heart ached. Her body is special. Your heart is of no use to her. You should restrain your grief and accept fate. Restrain my grief and accept fate? Yun Luofeng's body froze. Even Little Mo said that there was no way. Could she really not save Tian-er? If I can't save my loved ones, then what's the use of this lifetime's power? I've cultivated so hard until now just to protect the people around me from harm. But, in the end, I still couldn't protect her. When she left with Yun Chu-tian, she swore that she would protect her. But in the end, Tian-er sacrificed herself to protect her. Mother, don't cry. Yun Chu-tian smiled, revealing her cute canine teeth. She raised her hand and caressed Yun Luofeng's cheek. Tian-er will always be with you. No! Yun Luofeng's voice trembled, and her eyes turned red from grief. She hugged Yun Chu-tian tightly, as if she wanted to make her stay. Mother, Tian-er is leaving. Yun Chu-tian lifted his long eyelashes, a teardrop at the corner of his eye. Also, Tian-er wants to tell you, Mother, I love you. Mother, I love you. Yun Chu-tian's body became more and more transparent in Yun Luofeng's arms. In the end, it suddenly shattered and turned into specks of starlight that dissipated in her arms. Yun Luofeng's hands were still in the same position where he was hugging Yun Chu-tian, and he didn't come back to his senses for a long time. After a long time, she let out a heart-wrenching scream, Tian-er! However, the only response she got from the sky was the sound of the gentle breeze and the pained cries of the fire dragon in the void. Master! Little Mo quickly stepped forward and supported Yun Luofeng's body. No matter if it's a human or Yun Chu-tian, they can't live without a heart. It's not easy for her to be able to talk so much with Master without a heart. So, Yun Luofeng stared blankly at the reaction of Yun Chu-tian's disappearance. His heart was almost numb from the pain. If she didn't take Tian-er away, would everything not have happened? Chapter 2155. At this time, Feng Jin had already walked down from the sky. Dressed in white, he looked like an immortal, otherworldly. Why didn't you stop her just now? Yun Luofeng's voice was choked with sobs. She didn't even lift her head as she continued to stare at the place where Yun Chu-tian disappeared. Feng Jin pondered for a moment. That was her own choice. To her, living is more painful. She was willing to die for the person she loves. But she's just a child. Why should she sacrifice herself for our battle? I've said it before, she's not an ordinary person. Based on her age, she's older than the entire 7 continents. But in my heart, she'll always be a child. Yun Luofeng's lips curled into a bitter smile. She would always remember the first time she saw Yun Chutian in the secret chamber. The little girl, who was completely naked, stared at her with an innocent and confused look in her eyes. She looked so innocent and innocent. She is indeed dead, but she can still be alive. Feng Jin glanced at Yun Luofeng. In 5 years, she will appear in Heaven Emperor City. When that time comes, you can go there to find her. However, let me remind you that those who have reincarnated will not have any memories. She will also not remember you. So, whether she is willing to go with you or not depends on you. Yun Luofeng's ashen face finally showed a trace of change. She gently raised her eyes. 5 years later? Emperor City? Okay, I'll go there to find her. If she doesn't leave with me, I'll protect her for life. Feng Jin smiled. His clothes fluttered in the wind as he turned and disappeared from Yun Luofeng's side. He should also go find the lover of his 2 lives. Even though he missed her in both lives, he would never give up in his next life, no matter if she was a man or a woman. Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng slowly crawled up from the ground, walked to Yun Xiao's side, and planted a kiss between his eyebrows. Thank you for staying by my side in this life, accompanying me, protecting me, indulging me. In the future, I will protect you. Master. Xiao Emo wanted to say something but was interrupted by Yun Luofeng. She didn't look at the group of winged sky dragons in the flame prison anymore. She said calmly, "Let's go back to the Jun family. It's time to end this battle." The birth of a true god shook the world. Ever since the news of Yun Luofeng becoming a true god spread across the 7 continents, the Jun family's doorstep was almost broken. Especially since Yun Luofeng had a son, those families with little girls tried their best to enter the Jun family. But in the end, they were stopped by the Jun family. As for the dual-winged fire dragon that had been wailing for a few days and nights, no one paid any attention to it. In any case, it still couldn't escape death. 5 years later, at the back of the Jun family's mountain, the originally calm sky was finally dyed red by a blood-red light. Since the appearance of the Red Throne 5 years ago, another grand and luxurious throne had appeared in the void, causing the entire 7 continents to be shaken. Mother! A cute little boy hurriedly ran over and crashed into Yun Luofeng's arms. He raised his cute little face and smiled brightly. "Daddy, did you break through?" Yun Luofeng nodded. She looked at where the throne had appeared, her gaze gentle. "Yes, your father has also become a true god. On this land, it was very difficult for real gods to reach. It should be said that basically no one could reach such a height." Chapter 2156. However, Yun Luofeng had broken through because of Yun Chutian. Furthermore, Yun Xiao and Yun Luofeng's physiques were similar. Therefore, when he dual-cultivated with Yun Luofeng, he could also reach this height. Thinking of Yun Chutian, Yun Luofeng's heart ached again. She could still recall the scene of this girl's disappearance all those years ago. It made her heart ache even more. However, 5 years had passed. It was time for her to find Tian-Er's whereabouts. Just as she was thinking, Yun Luofeng saw a person dressed in black slowly walking over. Her lips curled up slightly. Yun Xiao. Yun Xiao strode over and pulled Yun Luofeng into his arms. He fiercely kissed her on the lips. His voice was gentle. "Did you wait too long?" "Yun Xiao, Nianfeng is still here." Yun Luofeng pushed Yun Xiao away and glared at him. Yun Nianfeng's eyes lit up. There was no need to mention how envious he was. His small body pounced on Yun Luofeng and he pouted. "Mother, I want a kiss too." At that moment, Yun Xiao's entire face darkened. He lifted Yun Nianfeng up from Yun Luofeng's body. He narrowed his cold eyes and threatened coldly. "Looks like you're bored and want to find something to do?" Under his father's threatening voice, Yun Nianfeng's body trembled pitifully. "Feng-er, I've already confirmed that this boy is the reincarnation of that bastard Songji. Yun Xiao turned to Yun Luofeng. He's already so lecherous at such a young age. He even wanted to molest my wife. 2 years ago, he even wanted to sneak into a servant girl's bath. Fortunately, I caught him in time and gave him a beating. I also ordered people to watch him so that he could change his lecherous habit. Usually, Yun Luofeng was more protective of Yun Yanfeng. However, when it came to this aspect, no matter how Yun Xiao punished Yun Yanfeng, she would always stand at the side and encourage Yun Xiao. So, having been persecuted by Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao, he hadn't had time to develop his lecherous nature before it was deeply restrained. Who asked Yun Xiao to be so savage? He didn't dare. Yun Xiao, 5 years is up. Yun Luofeng was silent for a while before saying. Yun Xiao was stunned. Back then, in order to protect Yun Luofeng, he had suffered too much damage, which was why he had fainted. As for what happened after that, Yun Luofeng told him after he woke up, "It's been 5 years. It's time for us to find her." Yun Yanfeng was confused. "Father, mother, who are you looking for?" The two of them looked at each other. Yun Luofeng smiled. "Go find your fiancé." "Fiancé?" Yun Yanfeng tilted his head and asked curiously, "What's a fiancé? Can it be eaten?" Although Yun Yanfeng had lustful thoughts before, it was because of curiosity. He was still a child and didn't know what a fiancé was. A fiancé is someone who is accompanied by a father and mother for a lifetime, Yun Luofeng explained. Yun Yanfeng blinked his eyes gently. Someone I can hug, sleep with, and even kiss? However, Yanfeng isn't as bad as father, pressing down on mother every night. I can even hear mother's cries of pain. Yun Luofeng's face darkened and he glared at Yun Xiao again. "If you dare to mess around in front of the child again, get out of the room and sleep." Hearing this, Yun Xiao was very innocent. "At most, I'll hug and kiss you in front of Yanfeng. I won't mess around." Chapter 2157. Yun Luofeng regained his senses and narrowed his eyes at Yun Yanfeng. "Tell me, how did you know that father was suppressing mother?" "I was hiding under the bed when I was playing hide and seek with Xiao Cui. I overheard it." Yun Yanfeng didn't know what he had done wrong and confessed honestly. "Overheard?" Yun Zhao's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. She immediately picked Yun Yanfeng up. "Let's go. Let father test how your cultivation has been recently." After saying this, Yun Xiao carried Yun Luofeng out of the courtyard. Not long after, Yun Yanfeng's ghostly wails and howls could be heard. Yun Luofeng didn't stop Yun Xiao. She looked at the azure sky and sighed deeply. 5 years, Tianer, mother will bring you home soon." In the 7 continents, other than the various states, there was also a royal family in each continent. However, the royal family of the 7 continents was only better than the aristocratic families and was suppressed by the major sects and the continent lord's mansion. Even so, the royal family still held a certain amount of power and was an existence that was respected by the common people. Sky Emperor City. A weak figure was tied to a pillar. Below her was a group of people holding torches. Her eyes were full of fear, as well as despair. "It's all this witch's fault. She's so vicious at such a young age." She couldn't bear to see the second princess being doted on by His Majesty and was jealous of the second princess being respected by everyone. So she wanted to kill her. The second princess is such a good person. She's simply a goddess who saves people from suffering. At that time, everyone in Sky Emperor City was infected with a very serious infectious disease. If it wasn't for the second princess, we wouldn't have been able to be saved. Everyone was enraged, and they all wanted to kill this weak little girl. The little girl was very young, only 3 or 4 years old. Her body was dirty and her original appearance couldn't be seen. Her little face was pale and her whole body was trembling. No, it wasn't like that. The illness a few months ago wasn't treated by her second royal sister. It was a method she researched. She was afraid that no one would believe her because she was too young, so she didn't take action. At that time, her second royal sister came to find her. She was the only one who knew that she was self-taught at such a young age, so she told her the method. Who knew that second imperial sister would take all the credit and even want to harm her? The little girl felt a lump in her throat. She wanted to say these words, but she knew that no one would believe her. These people could not wait for her to die. Why? The emperor has arrived. A sharp voice rang out, and after a while, a yellow-robed man walked over under the lead of a group of guards and maids. The man's expression was dignified and his gaze was cold. Do you know what you did wrong? The little girl shook her head and bit her lips. She was not wrong. Your mother was such a gentle and virtuous person. How could she give birth to such a vicious daughter like you? You're only 4 years old, yet you're already so scheming. You even want to murder your second sister. The man slammed his palm on the table and said angrily, all these years, the royal family has raised you, but you haven't made any contributions. Your second imperial sister is 3 years older than you, and all she knows is to serve the country and the people. She cured such a serious infectious disease, and even the #1 physician of Heavenly Imperial City intends to take her in as his disciple. Look at you. Other than eating and drinking, what else can you do? Just because your second imperial sister has such achievements, you're jealous of her and want to murder her. Don't you know that you're wrong? The man's expression was cold, but his words were like pearls. The little girl bit her lips and tears flowed down her face. I said that I could understand medicine, but you told me to go play and not bother you. Chapter 21:58. At that time, she did tell these people that she could understand medicine and write on her own. But they did not believe her. You still dare to spout nonsense now. The man's expression became even more furious. You were only a 2-year-old child at that time. You told me that you could write and understand medicine? Wasn't this all because your mother deliberately told you to exaggerate to attract my attention? It seems that you and your mother are not good people. Fortunately, your mother died a few months ago. Otherwise, I would not have let you and your mother off. The little girl lowered her head and her shoulders shook. She could walk on her own at 3 months and speak at 7 months. When she was 1 year old, her mother had taught her how to write. Every time her mother wanted to find this man to tell him about her behavior, she would be chased out by this man's nonsense. Then, he would put both mother and daughter under house arrest in the room, not allowing anyone to visit them. It was only when she was 2 years old that she was released. In order to see her father, whom she had never seen before, she had excitedly run over to tell him about her intelligence. However, he had pushed her away harshly and ordered the guards to chase her away. All these years, only second imperial sister had come to play with her. Therefore, second imperial sister was the only one who knew that she had medical skills. Someone, burn this good-for-nothing to death. My palace does not raise good-for-nothings. The man's cold voice made the little girl raise her head, and her eyes were covered with tears. As her eyes blurred with tears, a beautiful face seemed to appear in her mind. This face had appeared in her dreams at night for many years. Although she did not know who the other person was, she knew that they must be inextricably linked. I don't want to die. She did not want to die, because it seemed that she had not seen the person she wanted to see. She still had a promise that she had not fulfilled. How could she die here? The little girl bit her lips and her eyes were hazy with tears. She saw a huge dragon in the blue sky, and there seemed to be a few figures standing on the dragon's back. Your Majesty, it's a dragon! In the crowd, someone let out a cry of surprise. The man who was originally sitting on the dragon throne suddenly stood up, his expression excited. It's really a dragon. Looks like the dragon couldn't stand it anymore, so he came to destroy this vicious girl. The man's lips curled into a smile. To humans, the dragon clan was a symbol of strength and power. It made everyone want to worship them. Quick! Set fire to this demoness. Someone in the crowd made a sound, and everyone happily threw their torches at the little girl. The little girl was so scared that she closed her eyes. At this moment, the giant dragon let out an angry roar. The torch that was originally flying towards the little girl was bounced back and fell into the crowd, burning with a whoosh. Ah! Panicked voices could be heard from the crowd. Those foolish humans were all being burned by the flames. Some people brought water, but for some reason, the flames could not be extinguished no matter how hard they tried. The little girl opened her eyes and looked at the sky. Hence, the peerlessly beautiful face that had appeared in her mind in her dreams was reflected in her eyes, causing her frozen eyes to slightly widen. Her gaze was unable to shift away from the white-clothed lady. The lady leaped up from the back of the giant dragon. Her white robes fluttered as she stood in front of the little girl with a smile on her lips. Chapter 2159. This chapter was a combination of 2 chapters, so the book coins might be more than the other chapters. I've seen you before. The little girl's voice was very young and crisp, but it was full of certainty. I've seen you in my dreams. The girl's smile was very beautiful. It was hard to describe her beauty with words that could topple cities and countries. Tianer, I'm here to take you home. Home? The little girl's body stiffened. You called me Tianer? I don't know why, but I feel that this name is very familiar, but it also seems very distant. Have I seen you before? Yes. Yun Luofeng's lips curled up. You were my goddaughter in your previous life and also my son's fiancée. That day, you lost your life to save me, so I came to find you as promised. Yun Luofeng had selfish motives. She liked Yun Chutian a lot and wanted her to be her daughter-in-law. Thus, when she introduced Yun Chutian's previous life, she subconsciously brought this identity with her. Whoosh! Yun Luofeng casually waved her hand, and the rope that bound Yun Chutian loosened. She raised her hand to catch the little girl who was about to fall to the ground. Looking at the little girl's sallow and emaciated appearance, her heart ached. Sorry, I'm late. At this moment, Yun Luofeng was blaming Feng Jin. Feng Jin said that he could only come to Sky Emperor City to see Yun Chutian 5 years later. She always thought that Yun Chutian would be born 5 years later. She didn't expect that Yun Chutian had already been reincarnated for 5 years and had suffered so much. I'll help you kill all the people who hurt you. Don't leave a single one alive. When she said this, a cold glint flashed across Yun Luofeng's eyes, and her voice was filled with killing intent. The little girl grabbed Yun Luofeng's hand and shook her head slightly. No, don't kill them. Why? Yun Luofeng asked curiously. Your strength, isn't it very powerful? The little girl raised her head and looked at Yun Luofeng eagerly. Yun Luofeng hesitated for a while and nodded. The little girl revealed a bright smile. Then can you teach me how to cultivate? No one has taught me all these years. I want to have the strength to take revenge on my own. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng laughed. This was her daughter. Whoever hurt her, she would use her own strength to take revenge. All right, I'll teach you. However, I can spare their lives, but I won't let them go so easily. Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed and he coldly ordered, Yuni, go to the East Continent Prefecture and tell the East Continent's Continent Lord what happened here. He knows what to do. The heavenly sovereign city belonged to the East Continent. As long as the East Continent's Continent Lord spoke out, the heavenly sovereign city would never be able to rise again. Yun Luofeng picked up the little girl, removed the straw from her head and said, As for the other matters, when you grow up, you can personally take revenge. At this time, Yun Xiao and Yun Nianfeng also walked down. Yun Nianfeng saw Yun Chutian at first glance, and his little face frowned. Mother, why is little sister so dirty? Did some bad guy bully her? Yun Luofeng glanced at Yun Nianfeng, then at Yun Chutian and said, Nianfeng, you have to protect your sister in the future. Don't let anyone bully her again. Understand? Yun Nianfeng solemnly patted his chest. Mother, don't worry, Nianfeng will protect my sister. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng finally revealed a smile. Come, let's go home. Inside the city, the emperor jumped to a high place, and only then did he avoid the raging flames. When he regained his senses, he saw the little girl who was already far away and roared angrily, Quick! Stop them! He didn't see Yun Luofeng jump down from the giant dragon, so naturally, he didn't know her strength. However, no matter how angry he was, he could only watch as Yun Luofeng and the others went far away. Not far away. On the mountain range, a man stood with his hands behind his back, facing the wind. His white robe fluttered in the wind, and his slightly raised eyes looked at the heavenly sovereign city not far away. 5 years have passed. Yun Luofeng should have found Yun Chutian by now. I hope she doesn't blame me for making him wait 5 years to find her. Feng Jin's gaze was distant. If it had been a year earlier, Yun Chutian's mother's fate wouldn't have been able to escape death. And Yun Chutian's ending would also be different. Only finding her now is the best ending. At this moment, a delicate little Lolita walked to Feng Jin's side. Her little hand tugged on Feng Jin's sleeve. Her round little face was pink and she looked very cute. Master, Chang'er is hungry. Master will cook for Chang'er. Hearing this young voice, the man turned around and smiled gently. Okay, Master will go right away. Be good and play by yourself first. Master, Chang'er is clearly a girl. Why did you give Chang'er such a masculine name? The little girl pouted and said with dissatisfaction. Feng Jin lowered his head, and his big hand gently rubbed the little girl's head. Because Chang'er is Master's most beloved person. It's just that Master couldn't let go of all the grudges and accept him, and instead caused his death. In this life, Master will not make the same mistake again. Now that I've found you, I will be by your side for the rest of my life, accompanying you as you grow up. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. Chapter 2160. The 7 Continents. The Jun family. It had been a few years since that battle. The 7 continents had been relatively peaceful. Nothing had happened, except that Yun Luofeng was pregnant again. Yes, she was pregnant again. The entire Jun family was in a jubilant mood after the news had spread. Everyone had a smile on their faces. Even Old Man Yun had gone to find Old Man Yi for a drink. It had been a long time since he had last seen him. The Jun family's courtyard. Yun Luofeng lay in Yun Zhao's arms. She smiled as she watched Yun Yanfeng and Yun Chutian chase each other. This kind of life was really good. Miss! Suddenly, a hurried voice came. Yun Luofeng looked up and saw Qing Yan quickly running in from outside. She panted and said, Miss, Dingji Jotian is here to see you. Jotian? Yun Luofeng was stunned. He had been missing ever since he parted ways with Ji Jotian in the Fengyun continent. Even when the 7 continents were facing a crisis, he did not appear. Now he had finally shown up? Yun Xiao, let's go see Ji Jotian. I want to ask him where he has been all these years. Yun Luofeng stood up from Yun Zhao's embrace. There was a smear of urgency on his face. Yun Xiao silently followed behind Yun Luofeng. She knew that Yun Luofeng had not forgotten about Ji Jotian all these years. It was just that he did not want to come out, so she did not look for him. Now that Ji Jotian had finally shown up, she was naturally anxious to see him. Just as she finished speaking, a man in a blood-red robe walked in from outside the courtyard, just like when they first met. He was still as domineering as ever, a devastatingly beautiful woman. Jotian, Yun Luofeng's lips moved. You are finally back. Yes, I am back. Ji Jotian stood not too far away from Yun Luofeng. He looked at the woman's flower-like smile, and the corners of his lips curled into a slight smile. Do you want to know where I have been all these years? Yun Luofeng smiled. If you want to tell me, you will. If you are unwilling, I will not force you. Ji Jotian sighed. This woman was still the same after so many years. She had not changed at all. Similarly, she still moved his heart. But there were already people guarding the beautiful woman, so it was enough for him to accompany her as a close friend. Xiao Feng all these years. I've been looking for a way for you to return to your homeland. Of course, I'm afraid I won't be able to find this method by myself. It's all thanks to Zhu Qian's reminder and Chun Yuqing's help. Chun Yuqing. At this moment, the face of a banished immortal appeared in Yun Luofeng's mind. In truth, Chun Yuqing was the most mysterious man Yun Luofeng had ever met. Even now, she still couldn't figure him out. You're talking about a way to return to China? Yun Luofeng's eyes lit up. Her enemy was waiting for her in Wuxia. Yes. Ji Jotian had a complicated look in his eyes. Zhu Qian was the one who told me about this. When he recovered his memories, he found me and told me that you don't belong to this continent. There's only one way for you to go back. Chun Yuqing and I spent many years together to find that way for you. Yun Luofeng felt a little touched. In this world, there were still so many friends who helped her without complaint or regret. Thank you. You never need to thank me. Ji Jutian raised his eyebrows. If you really want to thank me, why don't you make your son my disciple? Chapter 2161. Yun Luofeng glanced at Yun Nianfeng, who was playing with Yun Chutian, and called out, Nianfeng, come here. Yun Nianfeng quickly ran to Yun Luofeng. Just as he was about to squeeze his small body into Yun Luofeng's embrace, Yun Xiao lifted him up by his collar. Daddy is so cruel. He didn't even let Nianfeng hug mommy. Yun Nianfeng pursed his lips and said pitifully, Nianfeng. Yun Luofeng did not care about the aggrieved Yun Nianfeng. She smiled and said, Do you think he is your master? Yun Nianfeng blinked and shifted his gaze from Yun Luofeng to Ji Jutian. A trace of curiosity flashed across his eyes, but he was an obedient child. Thus, under Ji Jutian's domineering gaze, Yun Nianfeng obediently called out, Master! Ha! Ji Jutian laughed wildly and raised his hand to rub Yun Nianfeng's little head. This little fellow is quite talented. I will definitely nurture him well. In reality, he only wanted to find an excuse to stay by her side. That was all. Jutian, when we return, I will let Nianfeng follow you. Now I have to bring him back to our homeland. After Yun Luofeng finished speaking, he shouted, Nianfeng, Tianer, let's go. Mommy. Yun Chutian skipped to Yun Luofeng's side, and a bright smile bloomed on his little face. Where are we going? To a place that you have never been to before? Really? Yun Chutian's eyes lit up. Is there delicacies there? Yes. There are many things that you have never eaten or seen before. Wuxia was the capital of delicacies. Even though Yun Zhao's culinary skills were excellent, there were still many things that this mainland did not touch upon. Thus, what Yun Luofeng said was not wrong. Mommy. Yun Nianfeng also held Yun Luofeng's other hand and smiled innocently. I don't like to eat delicacies or anything else. I just want to stay by Daddy and Mommy's side. When Yun Xiao saw the two little fellows occupying Yun Luofeng's left and right, he wanted to throw them out. However, when he heard the next sentence, his expression softened. Let's go. He raised his hand and hugged Yun Luofeng's shoulder. The corners of his lips curled into a gentle smile. Before we leave, let's go say goodbye to the old man and the others. She didn't know how long it would take for her to return, so she needed to inform Old Master Xin and the others. The Yun family and the Yi family had stayed in the 7 continents ever since the Great War. They didn't have other residences either. They were now living in the Jun family's residence. The 3 old men played chess every day and were very happy. Even Jun Fengling looked like Yi Shima already had a fiancé. This fiancé was someone that Yun Luofeng was familiar with. It was the Golden Sun Princess whom he had met on the Wind Cloud continent. She had later changed her name to Lian Yuesheng. Back then, Yi Shima, who had gone out to train, had somehow entered the Wind Cloud continent and met Lian Yuesheng. It was only when Yi Shima brought Lian Yuesheng home that he found out that Yi Shima was Yun Luofeng's sworn brother. Everyone knew that Yi Qi had a crush on Yi Shima. After Yi Shima brought Lian Yuesheng back, she cried her heart out and disappeared. Even though Jun Fengling couldn't let go of Yi Qi, she knew that Yi Qi needed to go out alone to calm down. Thus, she didn't disturb her. Moreover, with Yi Qi's current strength, basically no one in the mainland could hurt her. Chapter 2162. The Jun family. In the garden, several old men were drinking tea and laughing heartily from time to time. Suddenly, Lord Yun saw Yun Luofeng walking over from outside the door. He laughed and said, Feng why have you come? Grandfather, I'm here to say goodbye. Yun Luofeng's lips curled up slightly. This time, Yun Xiao and I are going somewhere. I don't know when we'll be back. The old men were stunned. Seeing Yun Luofeng's serious expression, they looked at each other. Now that the mainland was at peace, what mission did she have to complete? You go? Grandpa Jun muttered to himself for a moment before slowly saying, no matter what Yun Luofeng wanted to do, it was enough for them to support her. Xiao no matter what, you have to bring Yun girl back safely. Do you understand? Yun Xiao lowered his head to look at the woman in his arms and the corners of his lips curled into a shallow arc. Protecting her is my lifelong duty. And me. Little Nianfeng immediately jumped out like a little man. Nianfeng has to protect mother too. Good child, haha. Grandpa Jun laughed maniacally. His eyes filled with admiration. Girl. Grandfather Yun looked at Yun Luofeng with a sad expression. I don't care where you go, you have to come back as soon as possible. Now that you've finally settled down, I don't want you to leave for so many years. Yun Luofeng's heart warmed. All these years, she had been away from her family, but there was a reason she had to go to China. Other than her enemies. There was also her mentor who raised her. It could be said that without her mentor, she would not be here today. I promise you, I will come back as soon as possible. Yun Luofeng turned to look at Yun Xiao. We should go. But before we leave, I have to go find Nangong Yuni. Nangong Yuni was different from her. He had family in China, so she could not leave Nangong Yuni here. Central Continent. In the Continent Lord's manor, Hong Luan was walking on the road when she was suddenly blocked by a figure. She raised her head and looked at the man in front of her as she asked unhappily, "What are you doing following me around all day?" Luofeng said that chasing a woman requires perseverance. So wherever you are, I will be there. Nangong Yuni said shamelessly. Since the moment he met Hong Luan, he had already set his mind on her. Hong Luan glared at him and was about to walk past him when Nangong Yuni suddenly grabbed her arm and asked, Hong Luan, I have something to tell you. Hong Luan stopped and turned her back to the man behind her. What? Do you want to know how Fallen Maple and I got to know each other? Don't you want to know how Luofeng and I met? Luan was to Nangong Yuni. Nangong Yuni turned to. Nangong Yuni didn't get angry. The corner of his mouth raised into a handsome arc in reality. I'm the same as Maple Luo. Neither of us are from this continent. We come from a country called China. China? Hong Luan raised her head in surprise. There was a country in this world known as Wuxia. That's a place where there's no cultivation and no spiritual energy. Naturally, there are no spiritual beasts. Nangong Yuni continued. China is a famous country. It's also known as the capital of delicacies. Fallen Maple and I met at China University. At that time, I couldn't get out of bed for a few months because of her beating. When he thought of their first meeting, Nangong Yuni's handsome face twitched a few times. That was practically the nightmare of his life. Next, Nangong Yuni told Hong Luan about what he had seen and heard in Wuxia, about his family in Wuxia, and more importantly, about how they had come to this world. Hong Luan had never heard of or seen these things before. She was stunned all of a sudden. She quietly stood in front of Nangong Yuni and listened to her narration. Chapter 2163. The things you've said are truly unimaginable. There was actually a space in this world that was beyond her imagination. Hong Luan, everything I've said is true. Now, I'm telling you all this because I want to be honest with you. I will use my truest side to pursue you. Nangong Yuni's expression was unprecedentedly serious, and his tone was also very resolute. Hong Luan was a little flustered. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly saw Yun Luofeng and the others appear in the sky. Yun Luofeng? Her heart leapt with joy and she broke free from Nangong Yuni's grasp. She then quickly walked towards Yun Luofeng and the others. Why are you here? Yun Luofeng smiled. I'm here to look for Nangong Yuni. She then turned her gaze towards Nangong Yuni and her expression turned solemn. Nangong Juqian has found a way to go back. Go back? Nangong Yuni's heart trembled. You mean, back to Wuxia? Ever since he had arrived on this mainland, he had never thought that he would ever be able to return. That's right. Pack your things and leave with me immediately. Nangong Yuni hesitated when he heard this. In the past, he would have left with Yun Luofeng without a second thought. But now, this continent already had something he cared about. Hong Luan seemed to sense Nangong Yuni's thoughts. She rolled her eyes at him before turning towards Yun Luofeng. I've heard Nangong Yuni speak of a country called Wuxia. I wonder if I can go with you to see it. Luan Nangong Yuni's heart leaped with joy. Do you mean that you want to go with us? Was he dreaming? Idiot. Hong Luan threw those words at him before flicking her sleeves and leaving. She needed to pack her things and bid farewell to her father. Nangong Yuni stared blankly in the direction that Hong Luan had left. His face was filled with excitement and excitement. Luo Feng, does this mean that Luaner has accepted me? Yun Luo Feng and Yun Xiao looked at each other and saw the smile in each other's eyes. Hong Luan has already decided to go home with you. What do you think? The woman's good-natured mockery made Nangong Yuni so excited that he almost jumped. His handsome face was full of smiles. Luaner has accepted me. She's finally accepted me. He had not followed behind her all these years in vain. Let's go. Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders. I've been on this continent for 20 years. I wonder if 20 years have passed in Wuxia. Nangong Yuni had already recovered from his excitement. I don't have anything to pack. We can set off once Luaner arrives. After a while, Hong Luan walked over from the front. Her red clothes fluttered in the wind. She was so beautiful that she could cause the downfall of a nation. Nangong Yuni was unable to shift his gaze away from her. But Hong Luan did not even look at him. She said to Yun Luofeng, I have already said goodbye to my father. We can go now. All right. Yun Luofeng nodded. The 9 heavens are waiting for us. Let's hurry over. China. She could finally go back. Yun Luofeng's gaze softened a bit as she thought of her master, who had carefully nurtured her for many years. Her master had no children, so he adopted her from the orphanage and taught her everything he knew. She didn't know if her master would be able to take the shock when he learned of her death. Chapter 2164. Wuxia. In a luxurious office, a middle-aged man leaned against the sofa with a cigar in his mouth and closed his eyes in enjoyment. It's good to live like this. There was a smile on his face as he leaned back comfortably in the massage chair. Bang! The door was suddenly pushed open, causing the man to frown. He opened his eyes impatiently and looked at the beautiful woman with heavy makeup in front of him. He asked, Why are you here? I'm here to see if you've been seduced by a vixen again. The beautiful woman snorted and gracefully walked in from the door. Her eyes swept across the room. She only relaxed when she didn't see any other women. What do you mean? Why are you so suspicious? The man frowned and sounded annoyed. Yun Tianqi, don't forget that you can't get away with my father's achievements today. Lin Tsuetsue sat down next to Yun Tianqi. If my father's men didn't kill your brother and sister-in-law, would you have been able to rob them of their property? Yun Tianqi's expression changed when he heard Lin Tsuetsue mention the past again. He hurriedly walked to the door and opened it. Seeing that no one was eavesdropping, he closed the door and let out a sigh of relief. Don't talk about this again. If it gets out, what are you afraid of? Yun Luofeng is dead. What are you still worried about? Besides, with my father's influence, you don't have to worry about that at all. Lin Tsuetsue curled her lips and said disapprovingly, It was just a dead man. She wondered what Yun Tianqi was afraid of all day long. In fact, Lin Tsuetsue didn't know that Yun Tianqi had a guilty conscience. Although Yun Luofeng was dead, he had done too many things. He was afraid of being killed by a vengeful spirit. No matter what, it's a black mark on us. Don't mention it again in the future. Otherwise, Yun Tianqi narrowed his eyes and a cold light flashed in them. If it was the Lin family in the past, Yun Tianqi would be afraid. However, he had his own financial resources now, so he didn't need to be as careful as before. What? Do you still want to deny what you've done? Lin Tsuetsue sneered. That year, you took away your brother's property and became Yun Luofeng's successor. Who was the one who looked down on that girl as a burden? Want to send her away? If I hadn't thought of a way to discredit that girl, Yun Luofeng, do you think your reputation would be so glorious? But now, instead of thanking me, you still want to threaten me. Yun Tianqi was a little angry, but Lin Tsuetsue's words came at the right time. He didn't know what to say for a moment. Lin Tsuetsue's tone softened when she saw Yun Tianqi's expression. Don't worry, Yun Luofeng has been dead for 5 years. Even though her corpse was destroyed, there was no way she could have survived such a powerful explosion. In fact, there was another reason why Yun Tianqi was so worried. Yun Luofeng's body had not been found in the explosion at Wuxia University 5 years ago. It was as if she had vanished into thin air, never to be seen again. However, according to the school's surveillance, Yun Luofeng had indeed entered the laboratory with a young man. However, their corpses had disappeared. Tsue, I don't want to hear Yun Luofeng's name again. That girl is a nightmare to me. In the nightmare, the young Xiao Luofeng had hugged his leg, crying and begging him to take him in, but he had kicked him away. Xiao Luofeng's head was bleeding, and he had claimed that he would pay with his life. He had been scared awake by this nightmare many times in the middle of the night. He didn't understand whether it was right or wrong to chase Xiao Luofeng away back then. When Lin Tozue saw Yun Tianqi's cowardly behavior, she immediately became angry. Let me tell you, Yun Luofeng reaped what he sowed. Don't blame us. If you regret it, you can go to hell to accompany him. Chapter 2165. Yun Tianqi's expression darkened. Just as he was about to say something, he saw that Li Tsue had already walked out. With a bang, the door was slammed shut. Yun Tianqi's expression turned ugly. He clenched his fists tightly, and the anger in his eyes was obvious. On the bustling streets of Wuxia, everyone's eyes were focused on one spot as they surrounded and pointed at the side. Are those people cosplaying? I think that the woman in white is very beautiful, and the man beside her is also very handsome. He's much more handsome than those movie stars. The two in front of them are their children? They're so cute. If I had such cute children, I would be willing to do anything. Yun Chutian hid beside Yun Luofeng when he heard these people's discussions. There was a trace of panic in his eyes. On the contrary, Yun Yanfeng was looking around with his cute big eyes, his gaze filled with curiosity. Mother, what kind of beasts are those that can run? Why haven't I seen them before? Also, why are the buildings here so tall? Can't they fall down and crush people? Mother, look. A big bird is flying in the sky. Yun Yanfeng's face was filled with excitement as he excitedly pointed at those novel things. His eyes were shining. The people around them looked at Yun Yanfeng with disdain when they heard how inexperienced Yun Yanfeng was. They thought that these people were cosplaying, but it turned out that they were inexperienced. Yun Xiao maintained his silence from beginning to end as he quietly stood by Yun Luofeng's side. His gaze did not even turn as he directly ignored those novelty items. Yun Xiao, I have an apartment here. Let's go to that apartment first. I'll tell you some things when we get there. Yun Luofeng raised her brows slightly. Back then, she had bought an apartment while working part-time. She hadn't lived there until now before she transmigrated to a different world. Now that she was going back, her first choice was that apartment from back then. Yun Xiao didn't know what an apartment was, but he believed that Yun Luofeng wouldn't make any mistakes in any of her decisions. Hence, he just followed behind her and silently walked forward. Her apartment wasn't in an extremely prosperous area. The neighborhood was very ordinary, so no one stopped Yun Luofeng from entering. Soon, they arrived at the entrance of the apartment. Yun Luofeng looked at the familiar doorway in front of her, and her eyes moved slightly. She gently placed her finger on the doorknob, and her spiritual energy turned into a thread that passed through the keyhole and entered the center of the hole. With a click, the lock was unlocked. Yun Luofeng pushed open the door and walked in. The apartment was small and simply decorated, but it was very clean. It didn't look like it had been unoccupied for a few years. It seems like someone has been cleaning this apartment for me all these years. Yun Luofeng frowned slightly. There was only one person who could help her clean the apartment. As soon as that person appeared in her mind, an old and stern voice came from the door. Who are you? How did you get in? The voice was very familiar, so familiar that Yun Luofeng's body stiffened. She slowly turned her head and saw the old man standing at the door. The old man was holding a broom in his hand and the key to the door in his right hand. He was staring angrily at the group of uninvited guests, however. When he saw Yun Luofeng's face, he was stunned. His old eyes could no longer shift away as he stared fixedly at the woman's peerless beauty. Chapter 2166. You, Xiaofeng? The old man's eyes immediately widened as he stared in disbelief at the woman who had appeared in the apartment. He rubbed his eyes fiercely, and when he opened them again, he found the woman standing in the room, smiling sweetly at him. At that moment, the old man's body froze and his eyes reddened uncontrollably. Xiao Feng is already dead. Is it her soul that has returned to see me now? She was dead. Dead in the laboratory. He would never be able to see her again in this lifetime. Teacher. When the woman in the room saw him, her lips moved slightly and she slowly called out. The old man could not help but cry. His eyes were filled with tears. Xiao Feng, your soul has returned to see me. Do you have any last words to tell me? It's already been 5 years. Why have you only returned now? 5 years? Yun Luofeng frowned slightly. In the 20 years that she had been away, only 5 years had passed in Wuxia. Teacher, I'm back. Yun Luofeng slowly walked in front of the old man. Her face lit up with a smile. I'm not a soul either. This is the real me. The old man's eyes widened bit by bit. She raised her trembling hand and touched Yun Luofeng's head. That real touch landed on the palm of her hand. At that moment, the old man was like a child as she sobbed. Xiao Feng, you're alive? You're really alive? Where have you been in these 5 years? Why have you only returned now? And you clearly entered the laboratory back then. How did you survive? The old man's series of questions stunned Yun Luofeng. She looked at the man behind her and a thoughtful look flashed across her eyes. How was she going to explain this to her teacher? Yun Xiao had already slowly walked to Yun Luofeng's side. His arms hugged the woman tightly. When their eyes met, a gentle smile surfaced in his eyes. Xiao Feng, this is... The old man's gaze gradually turned to Yun Xiao. His eyes were filled with surprise as he asked. He's my man. Yun Luofeng's lips curled as she introduced him proudly. Man? The old man could not take this news and hurriedly leaned against the wall next to him. His student had disappeared for 5 years and now she even had a man? Teacher. Yun Xiao expressionlessly called out. The fact that he was willing to call the old man this lifetime already proved that he cared about him. However, with Yun Xiao's personality, he would not smile at anyone else. Thus, he maintained his poker face. Mother, mother. Yun Yanfeng and Yun Chutian ran to Yun Luofeng's side, their eyes shining. Mother, is she the teacher you mentioned? Yun Yanfeng tilted his head and asked. As if struck by lightning, the old man was dumbfounded. What? Xiao Feng had a man? Xiao Feng? That's not right. This boy doesn't look like he's only 4 years old. He should be 6 or 7 years old. Thinking of this, the old man looked at Yun Luofeng suspiciously. Xiao Feng, is this child really your son? You died. Oh, that's not right. You've only been missing for 5 years. The child is at most 4 years old, but this baby should be 6 years old, right? He eats a lot and grows up fast. Yun Yanfeng looked aggrieved. Mother, Feng doesn't eat a lot. He doesn't eat as much as Tian. Hearing this, Yun Yanfeng's eyes were filled with grievance. Mother, Feng doesn't eat much. He doesn't even eat as much as Tian. Bang! Yun Xiao punched Yun Yanfeng's head and said expressionlessly, Do you have a problem with your mother's words? Yun Yanfeng had the urge to cry. What sin did he commit? How could he have such a protective father? Mother was lying through her teeth, but father was still helping her. How despicable! But, fearing his father's power, Yun Yanfeng cried. Feng eats a lot and grows up fast. Mother is absolutely right. Chapter 21:67. The old man looked at Yun Yanfeng in surprise, but there was still a trace of suspicion in his eyes. Was that really the case? Teacher. Yun Luofeng's expression darkened as she asked, What happened after I disappeared back then? The old man froze when he heard this, and a trace of worry appeared in his eyes. But in the end, he shook his head and said, Don't worry. Nothing happened in these 5 years. I just came to clean your room regularly. Now that you're back, it's considered returning to its rightful owner. In reality, after Yun Luofeng died in the explosion, his body disappeared. So, the old man finally had some hope in his heart. He hoped that his student was still alive. At this moment, the old man's phone rang. He took out his phone from his pocket and looked at the caller ID. When he saw the caller, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes, and he immediately picked up the call. "Hello." As if the person on the phone said something, the old man handed the phone to Yun Luofeng. "It's for you." "For me?" Yun Luofeng raised her brows slightly. No one should know about her return, so why would they want to find her? However, Yun Luofeng didn't think too much about it and took the phone from the old man. But, just as she put the phone to her ear, an anxious voice came from the phone. "Yun Luofeng, come to Huangpu Hospital quickly. Nan Gong." Yun Luofeng had already recognized the other party's voice. He froze for a moment before asking, "What happened?" "My grandfather got into a car accident." Yun Luofeng frowned and replied, "Wait for me, I'll be there soon." After that, she hung up and didn't ask how Nan Gong Yuni knew that she was with her teacher. She turned to look at Yun Xiao and her son. "Yun Xiao, Nianfeng Tian let's go to the hospital." "What's a hospital?" Yun Chu Tian tilted her little head. Her face was like carved jade and very cute. "And mother, what was that lock you were holding? How could you talk to Uncle Nan Gong?" "I don't have time to explain to you. Saving people is more important." After saying that, she pulled Yun Chu Tian into her arms, and Yun Xiao also hugged Yun Nianfeng. The two of them looked at each other silently and quickly rushed out the door. Their silhouettes were very swift, like a gust of wind. They quickly swept past the old man's eyes. The old man stared blankly in the direction that Yun Luofeng had left, feeling that something was different. At the hospital, outside the emergency room, Nan Gong Yuni anxiously sat on a chair on the walkway. His face was deathly pale, and his bloodshot eyes stared at the emergency room next to him. His eyes were filled with anxiety. Damn it! If he had studied medicine with Yun Luofeng, he would not have been so helpless. "Don't worry, nothing will happen." Hong Luan patted Nan Gong Yuni's shoulder. "As long as fallen maple comes, there's no patient that she can't save. Even if your grandfather dies, she can pull him out from the depths of hell." Perhaps Hong Luan's words were effective, as Nan Gong Yuni's expression eased up a little. That was right. As long as Yun Luofeng came, there was no patient she couldn't save. Tisk. At this moment, a sarcastic voice came from the side with a face full of ridicule. "Nan Gong Yuni, you still have the nerve to say such things? If grandfather didn't think that you were already dead, he wouldn't be so worried and his health condition would deteriorate day by day." Chapter 2168. What's funny is that you didn't die. Instead, you ran off to God knows where and even brought back a wild woman of unknown origin. The one who spoke was a petite girl dressed in a princess dress. She looked like a proud peacock as she spoke with her head held high. Furthermore, if you hadn't appeared today, grandfather wouldn't have gotten into a car accident. Nan Gong Yuni remained silent as he lowered his head. In this family, the only one who loved him dearly was his grandfather, however. He hadn't returned for so many years, causing his grandfather's health to deteriorate day by day. Grandfather, who had originally been peacefully staying at home, had sneaked out today for some unknown reason and was even hit by a car. Furthermore, he had just returned at this time, so this group of people had pushed the blame onto him. They claimed that it was because of his return that his grandfather had tacitly gone out to look for him, causing him to be hit by a car. In reality, he had only found out that his grandfather had gotten into a car accident after he had returned. "Shut up." Hong Luan's eyes flashed with anger. "What does this have to do with Nan Gong? Did you not look after the old man and push the blame onto him? It was his fault from the start." The young girl raised her chin and said arrogantly, "Nan Gong Yuni, if it wasn't for your mother, that slut, who stole my mother's position, do you think you could be the eldest son of the Nan Gong family? Your mother is just a mistress who breaks up other people's love." Bang! Nan Gong Yuni, who had been sitting on the bench, suddenly stood up. His gaze was terrifying as he stared coldly at the young girl's delicate face. "You can insult me, but you're not allowed to insult my mother." His voice was icy cold and carried a hint of ruthlessness. This was the first time Hong Luan had seen Nan Gong Yuni act like this. "Did I say anything wrong? Your mother is a mistress. A slut." The young girl raised her chin fearlessly. In the past, Master Nangong had doted on her, so she couldn't do anything to Nangong Uni. Now that Master Nangong was sick, who in the Nangong family would want her to exist? Nangong Lan. Nangong Uni gritted his teeth as a bloodthirsty light flashed across his eyes. Who is the mistress here? After my mother married this man, your mother appeared, and then you were born. Now you're falsely accusing my mother of being a mistress? He didn't even call him father, which showed how much he hated that man. Nangong Lan was frightened by Nangong Uni's ferocious gaze. She retreated a few steps and quickly steadied herself. She coldly snorted and said, "So what? Your mother and my father only had a political marriage. Although my mother appeared a step later, they were truly in love. The one who isn't loved in love is the mistress." Hong Luan was stunned. This was the first time she had heard someone say that it was natural for someone to steal someone else's man. She couldn't help but admire this woman's shamelessness. "Say that again." Nangong Uni suddenly raised his hand and grabbed Nangong Lan's clothes. His eyes were filled with hatred. "I originally didn't want to beat you up outside grandfather's emergency room, but you kept on accusing my mother. If I don't stand up for her, then I don't deserve to be her son. If not for these people, Mommy won't die. He would not become a child of a single-parent family." All these years, he had never told anyone about his family. Even when facing Yun Luofeng, he didn't mention it at all. This was because mentioning these people made him feel disgusted. Chapter 2169. What do you want? At this moment, Nangong Uni had already grabbed Nangong Lan's neck. His eyes flashed with killing intent. This killing intent was so obvious that even Nangong Lan's body couldn't help but tremble. Slap! But Nangong Uni didn't see the fear in Nangong Lan's eyes, so he fiercely slapped her face. In an instant, her originally lovely and cute face instantly turned red and swollen, and she began to cry. "Nangong Uni!" Suddenly, an angry shout came from behind. A man and a woman walked over quickly. When they saw Nangong Lan in Nangong Uni's hands, their eyes were filled with anger. "What are you doing?" The man was wearing a suit. He quickly walked in front of Nangong Uni and shouted, "Put your sister down!" "Sister?" Nangong Uni laughed coldly. Back then, no matter how much he disliked the Nangong family, he didn't make things difficult for Nangong Lan. No matter what Nangong Lan said, he pretended not to hear. But ever since he went to the Wuhui mainland, he was influenced by the atmosphere of the mainland. He was no longer as indecisive as before. "I don't care who he is. I won't allow him to insult my mother." Bang! Nangong Uni raised his hand and threw Nangong Lan to the ground. Her head hit the wall with a bang. She was in so much pain that she saw stars. Tears kept flowing from her eyes. "Xiao Lan!" The beautiful woman next to the man cried out and immediately hugged Nangong Lan. Her eyes were filled with tears. "Are you okay? Quick, go get the doctor." After the beautiful woman said this, the nurses in the corridor also reacted and quickly left. After a while, a doctor walked over with the nurses. "Doctor, quick, check on my daughter. How is she?" The beautiful woman's eyes were filled with anxiety. She stared unblinkingly at the young girl in her arms. The young girl's face was slightly pale. Her forehead was dripping with sweat. She bit her lips and stared at Nangong Uni with hatred. "She can still glare at people. Looks like she's fine." Hong Luan glanced at Nangong Lan. Her lips curled into a sarcastic smile. Hong Luan's words have thoroughly angered the beautiful woman. She immediately rose to her feet and glared furiously at Hong Luan. "Who do you think you are? How dare you point your fingers at our Nangong family's people? A woman from some unknown countryside wants to marry into our Nangong family. As long as I'm alive, I won't let you step through the gates of my Nangong family." The beautiful woman glanced coldly at Hong Luan before turning to look at the man in the suit. Her initial anger immediately turned into grievance. "Honey, look at Uni. He wasn't like this in the past. He wouldn't hit Xiao Lan. He must have been led astray by this woman." Anger flashed in the man's eyes, and he coldly faced Nangong Uni. Apologize to your little sister and your mother right now. First, my mother is dead. Nangong Yuni's tone was very cold. Secondly, it was Nangong Lan who insulted my mother first. As her son, I will not sit idly by. Thirdly, from the beginning to the end, I was the only one teaching Nangong Lan a lesson. What does it have to do with Luaner? You actually want her to apologize? Nangong Yuni was not the only one who was angry. Even Hong Luan was amused. Looks like the best wasn't just limited to the 7 continents. There were many in China as well. Chapter 2170. Dad. Nangong Lan had already recovered from her dizziness. She bit her lips and her eyes were filled with tears. It was Nangong Yuni who scolded my mother first. He said that my mother was a mistress. I was so angry that I fought back. He only said that I insulted his dead mother, but he didn't mention that he spoke first. Hong Luan was stunned. This was the first time she saw such a situation where black and white were reversed. Her lips unconsciously raised into a smile. Impudent! As expected, the man was enraged when he heard this. He looked at Nangong Yuni with an even more furious gaze. When your mother was alive, did she teach you like this? You really have no upbringing. Miyuki is your stepmother. But you insulted her as a mistress. The real mistress should be your mother. If it wasn't for your grandfather telling me to marry her, do you think I would have married her? Nangong Yuni clenched his fists bit by bit. He needed to use all of his strength to restrain the urge to punch this man. Miyuki and I only met too late. Otherwise, there would have been nothing between your mother and me. The man glanced at Nangong Yuni coldly, then turned to look at Zhao Meishue who was already sobbing. His tone softened. Miyuki, you don't have to care about these words. It's enough that I know what kind of person you are. Unfortunately, we met too late. Otherwise, even if I had to go against the old man, I would still marry you. This was the first time someone said that cheating was a matter of course. What did it mean to meet too late? A man with a family, but for an affair, he forced his wife to death. In the end, he claimed that love was innocent. Even if they loved each other, they couldn't avoid the fact that the man was already married. The surrounding nurses and doctors also felt disdain in their hearts, but no one dared to say anything. This man wasn't only the CEO of Nangong Group. His father, the old man in the emergency room, was also a founding hero. Even though he was retired now, his connections weren't something others could compare to. For grandfather, I let you go this time. Nangong Yuni's expression slowly turned cold. His face was expressionless. If there's a next time, even if you're my father by blood, I won't let you go. He didn't want the old man to worry too much, so he let him go. Otherwise, he would have already made a move. Is this how you talk to your father? The man's expression was cold. It's fine if you don't want to apologize, but this woman, I won't allow her to step into our Nangong family. Nangong Yuni smiled. This smile was filled with disdain and mockery. It's not up to you to decide my affairs. You! The man was so angry that he wanted to press down on Nangong Yuni's shoulder. However, at this moment, a burst of power seemed to erupt from Nangong Yuni's body, directly repelling his hand. Scram! Beep, beep, beep. Just as the man was about to lose his temper, the light in the emergency room went off, and a doctor wearing a mask walked out of the emergency room. Doctor. The man couldn't care less about Nangong Yuni. He hurriedly walked over and asked, "How is the old man?" The doctor looked at the man and sighed. "The injury is too serious. The patient is still unconscious. If he doesn't wake up by tonight, you should prepare for his funeral. If you don't wake up by tonight, prepare for your funeral." Nangong Yuni's body staggered, and he almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, Hong Luan, who was behind him, supported him in time, preventing him from falling. Chapter 2171. Nangong Yuni. The man clenched his fists tightly. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared angrily at Nangong Yuni. "If anything happens to the old man, you'll be the main culprit. I won't let you off." Hong Luan, who was originally filled with worry, was immediately enraged when she heard this. Nangong is already sad enough that Elder Nangong got into a car accident. Now you're pushing the blame to him? Nangong Uni didn't say anything. His tightly clenched fists were already gradually trembling. His eyes couldn't leave the emergency room, and his eyes were a little red. Did I say something wrong? The man snorted. Lana already told me when she called me just now. If you hadn't called the old man wouldn't have rushed to find you, and he wouldn't have gotten into a car accident. Nangong Uni's gaze slowly moved away from the emergency room. He looked at the man coldly. I called the old man? Dad. Nangong Lan climbed up from the ground. Her face was covered in tears. Actually, I'm not too sure if it was brother who called. I only know that after grandfather answered the phone, he excitedly said that brother was back and that he wanted to pick him up. In the end, he ran out. I couldn't stop him no matter what. But he was hit by a car just as he left the house. Maybe it really wasn't brother who called. Nangong Lan frowned slightly. Perhaps she wanted to defend Nangong Uni, however. The meaning of her words was that if it wasn't for Nangong Uni's phone call, the old man wouldn't have gotten into a car accident. Now that he was in a rage, his father definitely wouldn't investigate the real source of the phone call. Moreover, so what if he found out in the end? She didn't explicitly say that it was Nangong Uni who called. Couldn't it just be a misunderstanding? Bang! The man angrily threw a punch at Nangong Uni. However, before it could land on Nangong Uni's head, Hong Luan raised her hand to block it. Her eyes flashed with anger and her lips curled into a cold smile. I've never seen a father like you. Boom! After saying this, she kicked the man's chest. In an instant, the man, who was over 1.8 meters tall, was sent flying by her kick. Hubby! Daddy! Nangong Lan and Zhao Meishue turned pale with fright and quickly ran in front of the man. When they saw the man lying on the ground, unable to move at all, they stared at Hong Luan angrily. Call the police and arrest the woman who hurt people. Let's see who dares. Nangong Uni pulled Hong Luan behind him to protect her. His eyes were still filled with uncontrollable sorrow, and his voice was cold and detached. I don't want to fight with you here. Otherwise, today, all of you will be lying on the ground and unable to get up. The emergency room's lights had already been turned off, and 2 guards pushed a stretcher out. Seeing the old man lying on the stretcher, Nangong Uni's eyes reddened as he slowly walked to the side of the stretcher. Grandpa, I'm back. Unfortunately, he came back too late. This is a hospital. If you want to fight, go fight outside. Don't cause trouble here. The doctor looked at the group of people in front of him expressionlessly and said in a routine manner. As expected, the doctor's words were quite effective. The man stood up with the help of his wife and daughter. His eyes were filled with anger as he coldly glared at Nangong Uni, but he didn't say anything. In any case, Miyuki had already called the police. The police would deal with the matter of the injury. Chapter 2172. Luo Feng? Suddenly, Hong Luan heard footsteps behind her. She immediately turned around, and after seeing that familiar face, joy flashed across her face. You're finally here? Perhaps it was Hong Luan's words that finally made Nangong Uni return to his senses. He fiercely grabbed onto Yun Luofeng's clothes. That expression, it was as if he was grabbing onto his last life-saving straw. Yun Luofeng, hurry and save my grandfather. Only you can save him. Nangong Lan sneered at the side. Didn't you hear what the doctor said? If grandfather can't make it through tonight, he's already beyond saving. And you actually want this woman to save grandfather? Do you think she's the reincarnation of Hua Tuo? If it was in the past, Nangong Uni would have already made a move, but right now, letting Yun Luofeng save grandfather was the most important. So, he directly ignored Nangong Lan's words, and looked at Yun Luofeng with a pleading gaze. Okay. Yun Luofeng muttered to himself for a moment, then nodded slightly. I need a quiet place, and I don't allow anyone to disturb me. Nangong Uni's heart was filled with joy. He was very confident in Yun Luofeng's strength. Even if you die, this woman can pull you out of Hell King Hall. Miss, this is the hospital. Seeing Yun Luofeng push the bed frame, the doctor lightly frowned and blocked her path. So, I hope you don't disturb the patient. Move. Yun Luofeng's voice was cold, making the doctor's entire body tremble. He never thought that a person could be this cold. The doctor thought of grandfather's identity and gritted his teeth. I can't let you do anything that would harm the patient. Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng saw that grandfather's condition wasn't very good and couldn't be bothered to say one more word to these stubborn doctors. So he directly called out. Just as this doctor was about to continue speaking, a black shadow already appeared in front of him, grabbed his clothes, and like an eagle dragging a chick, dragged him to the side. Everyone was stunned. Were the people that came today a bunch of perverts? That woman in red first sent Chairman Nangong flying with a kick, and now this man easily lifted up a strong and sturdy doctor. Even those weightlifters, perhaps they didn't even have this much strength. While everyone was still in shock, Yun Luofeng had already pushed grandfather's bed frame into the emergency room. Cough, cough. Only then did the man come to his senses. He coughed twice and shouted at the doctors and nurses with an angry expression. What are you guys doing here? How could you let someone who doesn't even have a medical license go and save people? If something happens to the old man, who will bear the responsibility? From the beginning, Hong Luan had been paying attention to their expressions. The man was really worried about the old man. After all, he was his biological father. How could he not care? But, however, Zhao Meishue and Nangong Lan were not sad at all. Instead, when they heard that the old master might not be able to make it, a hint of joy flashed across their eyes. That's right, it was indeed joy. Hong Luan fell into deep thought. It seemed like she needed to get Nangong to investigate the old master's car accident. At this moment, a group of uniformed policemen rushed in and said sternly, "Who called the police just now?" "It's me." Zhao Meishue bit her lips tightly and said. Only then did the police see the man and Zhao Meishue. "Mr. Nangong, madam, why are you here?" Chapter 2173. The policeman obviously knew them. He couldn't help but be respectful in his tone, but he was very nervous in his heart. Could it be that someone was blind enough to provoke President Nangong? "My grandfather had a car accident," the man said coldly. "What? The old general had a car accident?" The policeman was surprised. If the old general had a car accident, why would they call the police? Even if they did, they would look for the traffic department. What did it have to do with them? "My grandfather had a car accident. Not only did this unfilial son not help me, he even brought a woman to anger me. This woman even hit me. Bring her to the police station now." The man had one hand behind his back. His face was cold and stern. His face was pale. Hong Luan's kick just now was not light. The policeman was shocked. Someone actually dared to go against CEO Nangong? And she was the woman of the young master of the Nangong family? "Mr. Nangong, don't worry. We will handle this matter impartially." The so-called impartially was to teach this woman a lesson and help Mr. Nangong vent his anger. "Who dares come?" Nangong Yuni's gaze was cold. His cold eyes swept across the group of policemen. His lips curled into a sarcastic smile. "You don't even ask what happened and want to take her away? Is this how the police work?" Moreover, Hong Luan was defending herself. The policeman was stunned. He hesitated for a moment. Although he was afraid of the CEO of the Nangong group, he was a public official. He needed to care about his reputation. If this woman really hit him first, it would be pardonable no matter how they took her away. But if it was self-defense, it was hard to say. "Humph." The man snorted. "It's natural for a father to hit his son. You disrespected your mother and sister. Shouldn't I hit you? Who does this woman think she is? She dares to stand up for you?" Hearing this, the policeman finally understood what had happened. So Mr. Nangong wanted to teach his son a lesson, but he was beaten up by his son's woman. This was indeed the woman's fault. What did it have to do with her? Did he need her to stand up for him? Also, the man regained his senses and said immediately, "My grandfather was forcefully dragged into the emergency room by a woman. I suspect that she wanted to murder him. I hope you can convict her of murder." "What?" The policeman was shocked when he heard this. Murder of the old general? This crime was enough to sentence her to death. Quick, go and open the door of the emergency room. If that woman dares to resist, shoot her immediately. The leading policeman waved his hand and ordered. But before they could reach the door of the emergency room, they were blocked by a figure. Yun Xiao was expressionless, and his expression was cold. Anyone who takes a step in will die. At this moment, his body emitted a cold and gloomy aura, causing the temperature outside the corridor to drop by a few degrees. It was so cold that it made people shiver. The group of police officers had never seen someone as arrogant as Yun Xiao, so they were momentarily stunned. Even those criminals didn't dare to say such arrogant words to a group of policemen. How dare the man in front of her be so arrogant? In reality, these policemen didn't know that Yun Xiao wasn't a person of this world. The mainland he was in didn't have any laws, and the strong were respected. As an expert, he had the right to decide the life and death of others. In their eyes, the weak were no different from ants. Chapter 2174. Get out of the way. The policeman instantly pulled out a gun from his pocket. If you don't get out of the way, I'll shoot. Thinking about the old chief's safety, the policeman couldn't help but look anxious. Yun Xiao didn't know what he was robbing, but he could feel that the thing in the policeman's hand wasn't a threat to him. If Nangong Yuni wasn't worried about the old man's safety, he might have laughed out loud. Who was Yun Xiao? One of the only two true gods in the 7 continents. The bullet couldn't even touch the hem of his clothes, so how could it threaten him? They were really a bunch of people who had never seen the world. Seeing that Yun Xiao's expression didn't change, the policeman's hand trembled slightly. To be honest, he had just gotten this gun and hadn't had the chance to use it. But he felt a little guilty if he really had to shoot her dead on the spot. So, the policeman had only wanted to threaten Yun Xiao at first. But Yun Xiao didn't bat an eyelid. I'll give you one more chance. Get out of the way right now or I'll really shoot. The policeman gritted his teeth and warned her fiercely. But the emergency room's door opened, and an old voice came from inside. Who are you going to shoot? His voice was very calm, but it also gave off a very oppressive feeling. The policeman's hand that was holding the gun suddenly trembled, and he almost pressed down on it. Luckily, he stopped in time. At that moment, everyone's eyes turned to the emergency room, and their astonished gazes fell on the old man who walked out of the emergency room like the wind. Beside the old man, Yun Luofeng stood silently. She turned her gaze and saw the policeman pointing a gun at Yun Xiao, and her eyes slowly turned cold. Dad, are you okay? The man recovered from his initial shock, and his eyes flashed with joy. He quickly walked over to the old man. I thought you were hopeless, but now you... After saying this, he paused and turned to the woman beside him, frowning slightly. Could it be that this girl really had medical skills? Yun Xiao. Yun Luofeng had already walked to Yun Xiao's side, and a pair of sharp eyes swept over the policeman, scaring him so much that he almost dropped his gun. As a public official, how dare you point a gun at others? Who gave you the right to do so? The old man's voice turned cold. It was hard to imagine that just a moment ago, this old man was lying on the sickbed, half dead. Now, not only could he walk on his own, but he could also speak so forcefully. No matter how good his medical skills were, it was impossible to have such an effect. Hong Luan's eyes flickered. If she did not see wrongly, when the old master walked out of the emergency room, Zhao Meishue and her daughter did not look relaxed at all. Instead, they looked furious. It was supposed to be a joyous occasion that the old master had come back to life, but in the end, they were still so angry? It seemed that this car accident was not as simple as it seemed. This is a medical miracle. The doctor gradually came to his senses and his face was full of joy. Miss, can you tell me what you did to the old commander? This is even more magical than divine pills and miraculous medicines. No comment, Yun Luofeng said indifferently. What did she want to tell these people? She has elixirs? Put the gun down. When the old general saw the police officers with guns, his voice was filled with anger. If you hurt a good person by accident, you'll be in court. Chapter 2175. Hearing this, the policeman immediately put down the gun in his hand, and his face unconsciously overflowed with cold sweat. "Old chief, I heard someone report to the police that you were murdered, so I hurried over. Please don't blame me." "Humph." The old chief snorted, his face expressionless. "Just because someone reported you pointed your gun at the people of Wuxia? You don't even need to investigate? Is this the attitude of a group of public officials?" The policeman's expression was somewhat awkward. "Wasn't the person who reported you your son? Otherwise, how could we trust others so easily? Get out of here." The old chief's voice was awe-inspiring and had the awe-inspiring aura of a general. "Yes." That policeman wiped the cold sweat on his forehead and was about to turn and leave when a voice slowly came from behind him, with a slightly cold aura, causing his body to slightly tremble. "Wait." The policeman's body trembled, and he somewhat stiffly turned his head and chuckled. "This time it was indeed my negligence. Miss, do you have any other requests?" Whoosh! A gust of wind suddenly blew over, and the policeman only saw a white figure suddenly disappear. When he recovered his senses, the gun in his hand was gone. At this moment, his heart stopped beating. His hand was still holding the gun, and his head involuntarily slowly raised, falling on the woman's gorgeous face, and he fiercely swallowed his saliva. The ice-cold muzzle pointed at his head made his hair stand on end. All the blood in his body froze, and his stiff body couldn't even move. "In the future, if you point a gun at my people's heads again, then I will make your head become like this gun." Bang! Yun Luofeng's hand suddenly exerted force. The gun in her hand, like a bubble, suddenly turned into powder and fell from her palm to the ground. If it was said that Yun Luofeng's action of snatching the gun made him feel frightened, then this action almost made these policemen cry. Each of them scowled miserably, and their expressions were extremely aggrieved. What was going on? Was this woman still a human? She was even more terrifying than a demon. The old chief's expression was also astonished. Not to mention the action just now, which was hundreds of times more powerful than that of a special forces soldier. Just the action of crushing the gun made his heart almost stop beating. If the country had such a talent, how could it not prosper? Scram! Yun Luofeng's single word was akin to amnesty, and those policemen scrambled to escape. Their movements were comparable to a gust of wind, afraid that if they were not careful, Yun Luofeng would crush their heads. Compared to the police's fear and the old chief's excitement, Zhao Meishue and her daughter's expressions were extremely ugly. Nangong Yuni actually had such a friend? Why had they never heard of it before? Luofeng. Hong Luan faintly smiled and slowly walked towards Yun Luofeng. She raised her eyebrows and smiled. "What do you think? Did you see your teacher?" In fact, Nangong Yuni knew that the first thing Yun Luofeng would do after returning to Wuxia was to look for her esteemed teacher. So he called his teacher. Sure enough, he found her. Yun Luofeng nodded. "You haven't told me what happened. For example, your family." Her sharp gaze shot towards Zhao Meishue with a cold glint in her eyes. Zhao Meishue and her daughter seemed to have thought of her action of crushing the gun just now. They were so scared that they trembled and didn't dare to say a word. Chapter 2176. However, from the beginning, Nangong Lan's eyes never left Yun Shao. Nangong Yuni scratched the back of his head and smiled. "It's a long story. I'll explain it to you when the time comes." After saying this, he looked up at the old general and smiled. "Grandfather, are you all right?" "Haha. Thanks to this lady, I'm safe and sound. However, Yuni, don't you want to introduce her to grandfather?" The old general's eyes were all smiles. He didn't even look at Zhao Meishue and her daughter. His gaze was on Nangong Yuni. The old man wasn't biased. He just hated Zhao Meishue interfering in other people's families. Moreover, compared to his grandson, Nangong Yuni, he really didn't like Nangong Lan. Nangong Lan was too scheming. He really couldn't like her. If his son hadn't insisted on marrying Zhao Meishue, he wouldn't have allowed Zhao Meishue to enter the Nangong family. "This is my classmate at Wuxia University, Yun Luofeng. The other is her husband, Yun Shao." As for Hong Luan, Nangong Yuni turned to look at Hong Luan. He couldn't hide the smile in his eyes. Perhaps she will become your future granddaughter-in-law. Hong Luan blushed. She glared at Nangong Yuni but didn't say anything to refute. Ha ha ha. The old general laughed excitedly. His laughter was full of energy and was rather hearty. This girl isn't bad. My grandson has good taste. I like her too. Zhao Meishua's expression was originally very ugly, but after hearing this, her gaze became even gloomier. She was just a wild girl with an unknown background. How did she enter the old man's eyes? She was the daughter of the Zhao family, but she hadn't received the old man's attention all these years. The funny thing was, Zhao Meishua seemed to have forgotten that Nangong Yuni was unmarried, so the girl he liked would naturally receive the old man's respect. But she had interfered in someone else's family. If she didn't respect herself, how could she receive the respect of others? If there's nothing else, Yun Xiao and I will leave first. Nianfeng and Chu Tian are still waiting for us outside. Yun Luofeng looked at Nangong Yuni. Those two little fellows were curious about everything. They refused to follow her to the emergency room and instead played outside. However, after all, this was not the 7 continents. Yun Luofeng was worried about these two little fellows. After treating the old man, he said goodbye to Nangong Yuni. Wait, I'll go with you. Hong Luan's gaze shifted. When she saw Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao walk out, she immediately chased after them. In the lobby of the hospital, Hong Luan rushed over to Yun Luofeng in a few steps. Luofeng, I have something I need your help with. Yun Luofeng stopped in his tracks. He turned to look at Hong Luan and asked, What is it? Lend me a gold-seeking mouse. Gold-seeking mice? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows. All right, I'll give Meng Meng to you. No matter what, Meng Meng is the princess of the gold-seeking rat clan. Using her is a waste of her talents. You can just give me any one of them. Besides, Hong Luan's lips curled up into a smile. Are you willing to give me milk tea? Yun Luofeng grunted but did not say anything more. Milk Tea and Meng Meng had known each other for more than 10 years. The next time she returned to the 7 continents, she might as well settle their marriage. That way, Milk Tea wouldn't always look at her with those resentful eyes. Luofeng, aren't you going to ask me why I need the gold-seeking mice? Hong Luan muttered to herself for a while before asking. Chapter 2177. You rarely speak to me. Since you spoke, it must be something important. Only the gold-seeking rat can help you. Over the years, she and Hong Luan had understood each other very well. If the situation wasn't serious, she definitely wouldn't speak to her. Actually, Hong Luan's eyes flashed. I feel that Nangong Yuni's family's old man's car accident isn't simple. I suspect it was done by his stepmother. So I want the gold-seeking rat to follow them and eavesdrop on their conversation. Yun Luofeng blinked. Do you need a recording pen? A recording pen? Hong Luan's eyes flashed with confusion. What's that? I can't explain it in a short time. When the time comes, I'll let the gold-seeking rat bring the recording pen to you. Just as Hong Luan was about to explain, a scolding voice suddenly came from the front. Where did this little bastard come from? How dare you touch my child? I'll teach you a lesson in place of your mother today. After this shrewish voice fell, another stubborn voice came. My mother said that it's the father's fault for not teaching his children. Your son is so lustful at such a young age, and he even wanted to take advantage of Tianer. I only pushed him away. There's nothing wrong with it. Great, you still dare to twist words and force logic. I'll definitely teach you a lesson today. Yun Luofeng's expression darkened bit by bit. He raised his head slightly and looked in the direction of the two voices. In front of him, Yun Chutian hid behind Yun Nianfeng amidst the crowd. He blinked his doe-like eyes and stared at the shrew-like woman in front of him. This woman was around 40 years old and held a little boy wearing Adidas in her arms. However, this little boy's face was filled with tears as he wailed loudly. The surrounding people were pointing and gossiping. That woman didn't know shame and went forward to pull Yun Nianfeng. Yun Nianfeng clenched his fists tightly. If it wasn't for his mother telling him that he couldn't casually kill people in China, he would have killed this woman long ago. Whoosh! Just as the woman rushed in front of Yun Nianfeng, An arm suddenly reached out from the side and pulled Yun Yanfeng and Yun Chutian into an embrace. The woman couldn't stop in time and fell to the ground with a plop. The onlookers couldn't help but burst into laughter. Their laughter made the woman fly into a rage out of humiliation. She immediately crawled up from the ground and glared angrily at the man in black standing in front of her. "My husband is the deputy director of this hospital. How dare you attack me in the hospital? I'll ask my husband to kick out the patients in your hospital." This was the inpatient department of the hospital, so people who came here must be visiting patients. However, her husband was very powerful, so he just needed to find an excuse to kick them out. At this moment, an indifferent voice came from behind. "Master's wife, you're really impressive. I don't know when teacher became the deputy director of the hospital." The woman was about to lose her temper, but when she turned to look, she saw a familiar face. She screamed, "Ghost!" The onlookers were shocked by her. Just as they were about to scold her, they suddenly saw the woman walking towards the woman. The woman was dressed in a white ancient costume. She was peerless and instantly attracted everyone's attention. Who is this woman? Is she husband and wife with this man? Tisk, these two really match each other when they stand together. No wonder there's such a beautiful Wawa. As expected, they have good genes to give birth to such a fine breed. Chapter 2178. Quick! Take a picture and post it on Weibo. Even those movie stars aren't as beautiful as these two. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that they're a celestial couple from a book. Some people had already taken out their phones to take pictures of the family of four and posted them on the internet. Feeling the flashing lights of those phones, Yun Chutian hurriedly raised her hand to cover her eyes. The flashing light made her very uncomfortable. Are you a human or a ghost?" the woman asked through gritted teeth. Yun Luofeng smiled sweetly. "Have you seen a ghost before? How dare you come out in broad daylight?" "Not a ghost." The woman was stunned, but she was relieved. "You're not dead?" "Whether I'm dead or not doesn't seem to have anything to do with mistress. I just want to know, when did your husband become the vice dean?" After saying this, Yun Luofeng looked at the little boy in the woman's arms and raised his eyebrows slightly. "This little guy seems to be 4 years old, right? In other words, you've had him since I disappeared?" The woman looked a little embarrassed. "If Bo Lu didn't think you were dead, he wouldn't have fallen out with the principal, and he wouldn't have been suspended with a random excuse. You still have the nerve to ask me now? Suspended?" Yun Luofeng was stunned. Why didn't Master tell her about this? Moreover, Master was a professor in a high school. How could he be suspended just because he said so? There had to be some reason that she didn't know. "Mistress?" Yun Luofeng paused and said, "You mean that you can share blessings with Master, but you can't share joys and sorrows? Back then, as a university professor, my teacher brought you great honor, and you enjoyed everything that she had obtained. Now that my teacher has been temporarily suspended, you immediately abandoned her and followed some vice dean. Am I right?" "You!" The woman was so angry that her face turned green. She never thought that she did anything wrong. Who asked Fu Lu to be suspended? How could she be blamed for this? Suddenly, there was the sound of footsteps. When the woman looked up and saw a middle-aged man walking over, joy flashed across her face. She immediately said, "Hubby, you're here. Chunhua, I heard that someone bullied our baby son?" His gaze swept around and stopped on Yun Luofeng, Yun Xiao, and the others. His eyes flashed. "No matter what happened, it won't be good to do it in public. Can you come with me to my office to talk?" Humph. As long as they went to his office, no matter what they did, wouldn't he have the final say? If he wasn't afraid of the repercussions, he wouldn't have been so polite to this group of people in public. So you guys also know that the influence is not good. The corners of Yun Luofeng's lips curled up. His gaze rested on Xue Chuanhua's beautiful face. "Just now, your wife was shouting and yelling, making trouble for no reason. Why doesn't she know that this is a bad influence?" Actually, there was a huge age gap between his teacher and his wife, and it was his wife who had chased after him. There was a gap of more than 10 years between them, so the teacher loved his wife dearly. He was never willing to let her do any work, and he would always hand in his monthly salary. Even when the teacher's wife used the salary to buy skincare products and cosmetics, the teacher had never complained. Even if he and his daughter had to live frugally, he had to satisfy all of her vanity. Therefore, his wife took good care of herself. Even though she was over 40 years old, she still looked like she was in her early 30s. It was no wonder that she could seduce the vice principal. The vice president's eyes darkened as he glanced at Xue Chunhua. Chapter 2179. She had already told him many times not to be too close to Zhang Yang when they were outside. Yet, after taking over this woman, he turned a deaf ear to her words. "What is it?" he asked in a low voice. Xue Chunhua glanced at Yun Luofeng, then at Yun Yanfeng, who was in Yun Luofeng's arms, and said, "This brat just hit our son. I just wanted to teach him a lesson. Who knew?" The vice dean had a son in his old age, and he doted on his son very much. Now that he heard Xue Chunhua's words, his expression didn't look too good. "Miss, you were in the wrong first. Your son hit someone. Are you going to let it go just like that?" "Nonsense." Yun Yanfeng saw Xue Chunhua distorting the truth and immediately broke free from Yun Luofeng's arms. His face was full of anger. "You can ask the others what happened just now. If this bastard didn't want to bully my sister, why would I push him?" The vice dean was startled. He suppressed the unhappiness in his heart and continued, "No matter what the truth is, please come with me to the vice dean's office." Yun Luofeng pondered for a while and nodded slightly. "Okay." Seeing Yun Luofeng nod in agreement, the vice dean was delighted. As long as they followed him, he would have the final say in anything that happened. "Wanner, take care of Tian'er and Yanfeng. I'll go with Yun Xiao." It wasn't good to let her son see her beating someone up. She had finally erased the lustful factor of her son, so she couldn't let him be violent. "Okay." Yun Xiao nodded and walked to the vice dean's office with Yun Luofeng. Looking in the direction Yun Luofeng left, Yun Yanfeng's lips twitched. "Mother is so bad. She doesn't let me watch every time she abuses someone. I want to participate too." It was fine if she didn't let him look at beauties, but she also didn't let him beat someone up. How could he live like this? "Tian'er, you weren't hurt just now, right?" Yun Yanfeng walked to Yun Chutian's side and even took the opportunity to touch his little hand. That slippery little hand made him smile with satisfaction. Hong Luan noticed Yun Yanfeng's little action, and a trace of awkwardness appeared on her face. This fellow, at such a young age, already knew how to take advantage of others. Just now, he even scolded others with righteous words. Yun Chutian blinked his eyes. "With brother Yanfeng here, I'm not afraid of anything." Although she could rely on herself, but she still liked the feeling of being attached to her brother. Yun Yanfeng didn't care what Yun Chutian was thinking. He took the opportunity to pinch Yun Chutian's little face again. The soft feeling in his hand made his heart burst with joy. His mother had stopped him from taking advantage of other beautiful girls, but he still had Tian'er by his side. In this world, other than his mother, Tian'er was the most beautiful. Cough, cough. Hong Luan could not stand it anymore. She coughed dryly and said, "Yanfeng, it's not good to be flirting with girls at such a young age. Tian'er is still immature. We can talk about the future when you grow up." Although Yun Luofeng had selfish motives in marrying Yun Chutian to Yun Yanfeng, they were still young. Who knew what would happen when they grew up? Therefore, as for the future of these two, it would depend on their own development. This was also why Hong Luan was unhappy with Yun Yanfeng taking advantage of Yun Chutian. "Aunt Luan, why can't brother Yanfeng come into contact with Tian'er? Didn't mother say that Tian'er will follow brother Yanfeng for a lifetime?" Yun Chutian tilted his head and asked in confusion. Chapter 2180. She still didn't understand what love was, but she understood that she had to follow Yun Yanfeng for the rest of her life. "You don't understand these things now, but you'll understand when you grow up." Hong Luan awkwardly brushed him off. She couldn't explain this kind of thing. They had to wait until they grew up to figure it out. "Aunt Luan." Yun Yanfeng tugged on Hong Luan's sleeve and pointed at a woman in revealing clothes in front of him. "Aunt Luan, look, Why is that woman wearing so little clothes? Isn't she afraid of the cold? Also, her chest is so small, not even half of mother's. Yun Nianfeng pursed his lips. He had secretly seen his mother bathing before. Oh, right. He hid under the bed with Tian'er and saw his father pressing down on his mother with his own eyes. Of course, if Yun Xiao knew about this, it wouldn't be as simple as banishment. The woman in front of him seemed to have heard Yun Nianfeng's words and immediately turned around, glaring at him fiercely. That fiendish gaze made Yun Nianfeng jump in fright, and he pursed his lips in grievance. Aunt Luan, did I say something wrong? Yun Nianfeng. Hong Luan's expression was a little ugly. If you say another word, I'll go back and tell your great-grandfather that you were the one who broke his precious teacup. Yun Nianfeng trembled in fright and hurriedly shut his mouth. He smiled awkwardly. Aunt Luan, I didn't say anything. You must keep it a secret for me. I promise to be obedient. Hong Luan held her forehead. She suddenly felt that giving birth to a son was very tiring. This little fellow wasn't as obedient as Tian'er at all. It was fine that he caused trouble in the 7 continents, but when he came to this place, he couldn't control himself either. In the vice president's office, the door was slammed shut with a bang. The vice president looked coldly at the man and woman who walked into the office, a sneer on his face. Tell me, how do you want to compensate me? Compensation? Yun Luofeng raised his brows and asked. Humph, your son hurt my child. Don't you need compensation? Let me tell you, if you don't give me an explanation today, I'll kick your patient out of the ward. Yun Luofeng was stunned, and surprise flashed in his eyes. Kick out of the ward? Nangong Yuni's grandfather? Old general? The vice president saw the surprise in Yun Luofeng's eyes and thought she was afraid. He said sarcastically, since you're in the inpatient department, you must have a relative in the hospital. Even if it's not a relative, it must be a friend or relative. If you don't apologize to my son and take out some compensation for the psychological damage, I'll get someone to kick you out immediately. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng's lips curled up slightly. This is a society governed by law. Is it not against the law for your hospital to publicly expel patients? Ha ha! The deputy director sneered. There are many ways to expel a patient. I said that his condition is too serious and can't be cured. Our hospital is short of beds, so naturally, we can't let him occupy a limited space here. Do you think anyone will say anything in this way? Yun Luofeng smiled and looked at the deputy director. Wuxia Hospital has always been a famous hospital, but a parasite like you has appeared. I'm afraid we have to get rid of you today. What do you want to do? The vice president saw the threatening light in Yun Luofeng's eyes. This is a society governed by law. Would she dare to make a move? For those who abide by the law, of course I will abide by the law. For people like you, why would I need those laws? When Yun Luofeng's words fell, the man beside him suddenly disappeared and immediately appeared in front of him. Chapter 2181. The deputy director was scared out of his wits. This speed was too fast. Was he still human? Boom! Just as the deputy director was in a state of disbelief, he was kicked and his body slammed into the wall. He screamed in pain. Ah! But Yun Xiao didn't stop. His movements were as smooth as flowing water. He hit the deputy director so hard that he couldn't even beg for mercy. His whole body was in so much pain that it felt like it was going to fall apart. Xue Chunhua was stunned. The child in her arms curled up tightly. She was so frightened that she couldn't say a word. After a long while, she reacted and quickly rushed out of the door. But just as she reached the door, she saw the woman in front of her glare at her coldly. With just one glance, she felt as if a hammer had ruthlessly smashed into her body, causing blood to gush out of her mouth and her face to turn deathly pale. How? How was this possible? She didn't even touch the corner of her clothes. How could she have injured her? Could it be? Were there really martial arts masters like those on television? At that moment, footsteps could be heard outside the door. Soon, the footsteps were right in front of him. With a bang, the locked door was kicked open. But when the footsteps were heard, Yun Xiao had already stopped and returned to Yun Luofeng's side. Hence, when those people stepped in, they only saw the deputy director and Xue Chunhua moaning on the ground. They didn't see Yun Zhao's actions. What happened? The leader was an elderly man. His expression was solemn and his gaze was cold. Director! The deputy director immediately stood up and pointed angrily at Yun Luofeng. These two people are so bold. They dared to attack me, the deputy director, in the hospital. Call the police and arrest them. Attack? For a moment, everyone's gazes fell on Yun Luofeng. You said we hit you. Where's the evidence? Yun Luofeng asked with a faint smile. You actually asked such an idiotic question. The injuries on my body are the evidence. The deputy director angrily lifted his clothes, revealing his hairy body. But there wasn't even a trace of injury on his body. Seeing this, the dean's face darkened. Fu Dong, are you kidding me? Fu Dong was stunned. He looked at his own body in astonishment. When he saw that there was no trace of his chest, he was dumbfounded. No, that's impossible. He clearly beat me up, so why am I not injured at all? This is impossible. How could this be? Why were there no marks on his body, but his whole body was in pain? Headmaster. Xue Chunhua bit her lip and said, I can prove what my husband said. Just now, Yun Luofeng didn't even touch me, but she used some unknown method to injure me. Yun Luofeng smiled. She glanced at the ashen-faced dean, and her lips curled up. You said that I didn't touch you, so how did I hurt you? Xue Chunhua said angrily, How would I know? The dean's expression became more and more unsightly. Seeing that these people were getting more and more outrageous, he immediately shouted, Enough! Do you think I'm a fool? He wasn't injured at all, yet he said he was injured by someone. I heard that our Wuxia hospital is bullying others. Shouldn't you give me an explanation for this matter? Chapter 2182. Director. Xue Chunhua panicked. Just as she was about to say something, she saw the director's sharp gaze and immediately shut her mouth in fear. Just then, a doctor rushed in from outside the door. He said while panting, Director, the old general has woken up. What? The director, who was about to reprimand him, snapped back to his senses when he heard this. He looked at the doctor behind him in disbelief. What did you say? The old general has recovered? To be honest, although the director had sent the best doctor in the hospital, the old general's injuries were too serious, so he wasn't very confident. Now that he heard that the old general had been cured, he was momentarily stunned. It's true, the old general was on the verge of death just now. If he didn't make it through tonight, he wouldn't have been able to be saved. But just now, a lady suddenly appeared and used some unknown method to save the old general. That lady! The doctor was about to praise the lady who had saved the old general when he suddenly noticed Yun Luofeng standing at the side. He was instantly stunned. The director was still asking, What happened to that lady? The doctor looked dumbfounded at Yun Luofeng, who was standing at the side. His gaze was a little dazed. Director, do you know this lady? The director was a little baffled. What do you mean? This sentence made the doctor snap back to his senses. His gaze was a little stunned. Director, this lady saved the old general. Why? You don't know her? When he saw this lady in the director's office, he thought they knew each other. The director was stunned. The deputy director and Xue Chunhua were dumbfounded. Only the little boy nestled in Xue Chunhua's arms didn't know what had happened. He looked at Yun Xiao and Yun Luofeng with a little fear in his eyes. Dr. Lu, are you sure the old general has recovered? The director snapped back to his senses and turned to ask Dr. Lu. Dr. Lu hurriedly nodded. Just now, I checked the old general's body again and discovered that he has completely recovered. He doesn't even need to be hospitalized. This is a legend in the medical world. The director's gaze was filled with shock as he slowly turned to Yun Luofeng. There was an uncontrollable joy in his eyes. Miss, how did you manage to cure the old general? How could a dying car accident victim recover so quickly? How could this be called a miracle? It was practically a god descending to the world to be able to do this. Therefore, the headmaster would definitely not let go of such an opportunity. Dr. Liu, are you saying that she cured the old leader? That's a joke. She's just a little girl. How could she have such power? The deputy director snapped back to reality after being stunned for a moment. Unless it was God, it was impossible for the heavily injured old chief to recover. Moreover, how long had it been since the accident? Even surgeries would not be this fast. Dr. Liu's expression didn't look too good. Deputy director, what I said is the truth. If you don't believe me, you can go and have a look. Moreover, this lady is here to visit the old chief. Compared to Yun Luofeng's medical skills, what shocked the deputy director even more was that Yun Luofeng's visitor was the old chief. Oh my God. Did he just say that he wanted to kick the old general out of the hospital? Thinking of this, the vice dean raised his head mechanically. His astonished gaze slowly fell on Yun Luofeng's face. When he saw the woman's forced smile, his heart trembled and his face turned deathly pale. Chapter 2183. What happened? After seeing the deputy director's pale face, the director's face darkened. Did this idiot say something again? Yun Luofeng rubbed his chin and said, Nothing much. It's just that the deputy director of Wuxia Hospital said that he wanted to kick my patient out of the hospital. But now that the old general has recovered, there's no need for him to stay in your hospital. When the director heard this, he was furious. He glared at the deputy director and gritted his teeth. Did you say that? Not to mention the old general, even if it was a normal patient, he didn't have the right to kick him out. Director, I'm innocent, the deputy director said with a sad face. Don't listen to this little girl's nonsense. How would I have the guts to say something like that? She's trying to frame me. Hearing this, the director frowned. He hoped that the deputy director was innocent. Otherwise, the reputation of Wuxia Hospital wouldn't be good if word got out. But just as the director was hoping for luck, Yun Luofeng took out a phone from her pocket. This phone was given to her by her teacher when she left the apartment. It was convenient for her to contact Nangong Uni. She didn't expect it to be useful now. So, at that moment, the deputy director's ferocious voice came from the phone. Your son hurt my son. Don't you need compensation? Let me tell you, if you don't give me an explanation today, I'll kick your patient out of the ward. You're in the inpatient department, so you must have a relative in the hospital. Even if it's not a relative, it must be a friend or relative. If you don't apologize to my son and pay for the psychological damage, I'll get someone to kick you out immediately. This is a society ruled by law. Isn't it illegal for your hospital to kick out a patient? There are many ways to expel a patient. I said that his condition is too serious and can't be cured. Our hospital is short of beds, so naturally, we can't let him occupy a limited space here. In this way, do you think anyone will say anything? With each word that was played from the phone recording, the vice president's face turned paler. When the last word fell, his legs gave way, and he fell to the ground with a thud. It's over. This time, it's all over sure enough. After hearing this, the dean flew into a rage. Fudong, I didn't expect you to do such a thing. I saw it today, but what if I didn't? How many mistakes have you made? If I continue to keep you, then you will be a parasite in Wuxia Hospital. Sooner or later, our hospital will be ruined because of you. Dean! The vice dean's body trembled. His throat was a little dry, and in the end he couldn't say a word. The director didn't even look at the deputy director. He turned to look at Yun Luofeng and asked with a smile, Miss, I know you don't want to reveal the method you used to treat the old leader, but can we have a discussion about medical skills? Wuxia Hospital was the most famous hospital in Wuxia. This was especially so for the dean, whose medical skills were extremely exquisite. But even he couldn't pull the old commander back from the brink of death. But this little girl had done it. How could he not be shocked? He was not willing to let go of such an opportunity. Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders and exchanged glances with Yun Xiao beside him. I'm afraid I don't have time today. If there's a chance in the future, we can discuss it together. Chapter 2184. The dean wanted to say something, but Yun Luofeng didn't give him the chance. He turned around and was about to leave. She had to go back and ask her teacher what had happened. The dean looked in the direction Yun Luofeng left. Although he felt it was a pity, he didn't say anything. He turned around and looked coldly at Fu Dong, whose face was full of despair. "You're a parasite of Wuxia Hospital. You're here to ruin our reputation. From now on, you're no longer the vice dean of Wuxia Hospital." Fu Dong's legs were a little weak. His throat was dry. He opened his mouth several times, but he couldn't say anything in the end, because he knew that even if he begged for mercy, it would be useless. Bang! The dean left and slammed the door. Fu Dong stood up awkwardly and began to organize his belongings. "Hubby!" Xue Chunhua bit her lip and said, "Don't worry. Even if Wuxia Hospital doesn't want you, you can still work in another hospital." "Shut up." Fu Dong threw the things in his hand and roared. "If it weren't for you, would I have been fired by the dean? You still have the nerve to say such things? I've already been fired by Wuxia Hospital. My reputation will also be spread. From now on, which hospital would dare to take me in?" Xue Chunhua's face was pale. She didn't expect things to be this serious. She suddenly became anxious. "Then what should we do? How are you going to support me and our son without a job?" Suddenly, Fu Dong raised his head and stared at Xue Chunhua fiercely. "Are you thinking about leaving again? Back then, didn't you seduce me because your ex-husband lost his job? Do you think I don't know about this? If it weren't for the fact that you gave birth to a son, I wouldn't have let it go." Looking at Fu Dong's red eyes, Xue Chunhua took a few steps back guiltily. "Hubby, what are you talking about? How could I leave you?" Bang! Fu Dong suddenly stepped forward and grabbed Xue Chunhua's clothes. He punched her head. Xue Chunhua's head was bleeding and her eyes were full of fear. "Hubby, I'm warning you, now that I don't have a job, don't even think about leaving me. If you dare to have any evil thoughts, I'll kill you even if I have to lose my life." His eyes were bloodshot, and Xue Chunhua was so frightened that she didn't dare to say a word. The little boy beside her also burst into tears. Fu Dong snorted and flung Xue Chunhua away. "Pack up my things immediately. From tomorrow onwards, go out and find a job. Your monthly salary cannot be lower than 5,000, or else I'll beat you to death." Fu Dong vented his anger on Xue Chunhua. Xue Chunhua did not resist, nor did she dare to resist. She quietly tidied up her personal belongings on the table with her head covered in blood. At this moment, she actually missed her ex-husband. Perhaps in this world, there was no one who treated her better than her ex-husband. Even when she betrayed her ex-husband, he was not willing to lay a finger on her. He just silently let her go. More importantly, Yun Luofeng had returned, and he had even saved the old chief's life. If she hadn't divorced her ex-husband, would everything have been different? Would she still be that pampered wife? Unfortunately, there were no ifs in life. If she did something wrong, she had to pay the price. Chapter 2185. After stepping out of the hospital, Yun Luofeng flagged down a taxi and gave the name of the small district according to his memory. In just a quarter of an hour, the taxi stopped at the entrance of the small district. Blurg! Just as he stepped out of the taxi, Yun Yanfeng couldn't help but vomit. His little face was deathly pale and his lips trembled slightly. "Mother, what kind of spiritual beast was that? Yanfeng feels so bad." "Oh," Yun Luofeng grunted. "Then call me a taxi. All right, let's go find my master first. Once you've familiarized yourself with this world, you won't be so afraid anymore." After saying this, she raised her head and swept her eyes over the silent Yun Xiao. This man's mental fortitude was too strong. No matter what he saw, his expression did not change, and he didn't even ask her a single question. "Yun Xiao, After Yun Luofeng had called his name, he had responded softly. However, those words seemed to have been squeezed out from between his teeth, and Yun Luofeng sensed that something was wrong. "You don't tell me you're also carsick?" Yun Xiao's expression finally showed a hint of change. His grim features seemed to crack as he nodded with great difficulty. "Also, I don't like the air here." Yun Luofeng curled his lips into a small smile. "After a while, we'll go back after I've avenged myself." "All right." After all, Yun Xiao wasn't from this mainland. When he had just come into contact with the mainland's air, he would certainly not be very used to it. However, he had been forcing himself to adapt to everything here all this time. Under Yun Luofeng's lead, the few of them had already entered the small district. Even though this small district was very old and seemed to have been around for quite some time, in Wuxia's capital where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, even an old district was worth tens of millions. Fortunately, Yun Luofeng's memory had always been outstanding. In just a short while, she had already reached the door. She raised her hand and knocked on the door. "Coming." A clear voice sounded from behind the door. When the door was opened, a mischievous little girl poked her head out. When she saw Yun Luofeng standing at the door, shock flashed across her large eyes. "You, your elder sister Luofeng?" "Qing Qing, long time no see. Is teacher home?" Fu Qing's eyes widened bit by bit, her pretty little face filled with shock. "Sister Luofeng, is it really you? Just now, my father told me that you were still alive, but I didn't believe him at all. I didn't expect that. You really didn't die? By the way, these are..." Her large eyes swept over Yun Xiao and his son, her gaze filled with curiosity. "He is your brother-in-law, and the other two are your nephew and niece." "Nephew and niece?" Fu Qing was dumbfounded, as if she was struck by lightning. "Sister Luofeng, you actually have such a big child? Could it be that you hooked up with brother-in-law in school? And they even gave birth to a child? Oh my God. No wonder you faked your death and disappeared." Fu Qing took it upon herself to find an excuse for Yun Luofeng's revival. After all, although there was an explosion back then, no one saw her body, right? However, Yun Xiao was very unhappy with the word hook up that Fu Qing used. His relationship with Yun Luofeng was open and above board. How could it be seduction? "Teacher isn't home?" Yun Luofeng glanced inside the house and asked. Fu Qing nodded. "Dad went to buy groceries. He'll probably be back soon. Sister Luofeng, hurry in and have a seat with brother-in-law. I'll pour you a cup of tea." Chapter 2186. Yun Luofeng didn't stand on ceremony. After Fu Qing finished speaking, she immediately walked in. Ever since she left the orphanage, she grew up in her mentor's house. She and Fu Qing were like sisters. It was just that her mentor's wife wasn't satisfied with her existence, and it was her mentor who insisted on keeping her. Thinking back to the past and seeing everything familiar in the room, Yun Luofeng's heart warmed, and her lips curled into a smile. Felt good to be back. "Sister Luofeng, please have some tea." Fu Qing wore an apron and walked to Yun Luofeng's side with a cup of tea. She had an innocent smile on her face, and it was obvious that she was inexperienced. "Qing, can you tell me what's going on? How did your dad get expelled from Wuxia University?" Yun Luofeng frowned and asked. Fu Qing froze and bit her lip. "Sister Luofeng, not long after you were in danger, Dad made a mistake at work, and someone reported him for hooking up with a female student." Yun Luofeng's face darkened. Teacher wouldn't do such a thing. At the mention of this matter, Fu Qing was very angry. Dad definitely wouldn't do such a thing. He was framed. We all know about this. But the school still suspended him from his position without any explanation. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng's face became uglier and uglier. After a long time, she said, "I just met your mother at the hospital. She said that teacher was suspended because of me?" "What?" Fu Qing was furious, and her little face was red. "You met that woman? Don't listen to her nonsense. She's lying. She also knows why Dad was suspended. This has nothing to do with you." Yun Luofeng pursed her lips and didn't say anything. No matter what the reason was, she wouldn't let go of the person who caused her teacher to be suspended. "Also," Fu Qing said angrily, "back then, Dad had only been suspended for a few days, and she ran away with someone. More importantly, she knew that Dad didn't do such a thing, but because Dad couldn't give her a good life, she left. This kind of person doesn't deserve to be my mother." Fu Qing got angrier as she spoke. She would never forgive that woman in this lifetime. Yun Luofeng caught some clues from Fu Qing's words. She frowned and asked, "Your mother doesn't seem like someone who trusts teacher that much. Why do you say that she knows that teacher didn't do such a thing? At that time, our family of 3 was together. In the end, someone took a video and posted it online. There was a date and time on the video so I could confirm which day it was taken. That person did look like my father, but I could tell that he wasn't my father. Yun Luofeng had his suspicions from the start. No matter what, Wuxia Academy was still a high school, and it was impossible for them to casually suspend a professor. Looking at it now, it turned out that the professor had been framed. Since the 3 of you are together, there should be an alibi for the teacher. After Yun Luofeng said this, Fu Qing bit her lip and shook her head. Apart from me and that woman, there is no other proof. And because we are relatives, our words cannot be trusted. Yun Luofeng did not continue on this deep topic. She and Yun Xiao looked at each other, a cold glint hidden in their eyes. No matter who it was, she wouldn't let them off for framing her teacher. Qing, you should be in university by now, right? Which university did you go to? Yun Luofeng's face returned to a smile as she asked. Chapter 2187. The smile on Fu Qing's face froze, and she lowered her head. Wuxia University. In reality, she didn't want to go to Wuxia University, but her father wouldn't let her give up such a good school, and insisted that she enter Wuxia University. In order not to disappoint her father, she could only enter this school, however. In the school, everyone knew that she was Fu Ru's daughter. Countless rumors and curses came one after another, and she had no human rights to speak of in this school. If it weren't for her father, she would have given up long ago. Luofeng, you're here? At this moment, the door was opened, and Fu Ru appeared at the door, carrying a basket of groceries. When he saw Yun Luofeng, there was no surprise in his eyes, and he said with a smile, I guess that you would definitely come to my place for lunch. You guys wait here first, I'll go cook. Teacher. Yun Luofeng stood up and smiled faintly. It's getting late. You don't have to busy yourself. Let's go eat. Fu Ru was startled, but didn't say anything. He nodded slightly. Okay, then I'll put these groceries in the fridge first. I'll cook when I come back tonight. After saying this, Fu Ru went to work. Yun Luofeng took the opportunity of going to the toilet to call Nangong Yuni. When she heard Nangong Yuni's voice, she immediately got to the point. Nangong, what way do you have to get money? Money? Yun Luofeng, if you want money, I can lend it to you. No. Yun Luofeng shook her head. What I need is a large amount of RMB. Just that isn't enough. If she wanted revenge, the first step was to gather enough funds. Nangong Yuni was silent for a moment. Do you remember Shuedong? Shuedong? Yun Luofeng froze, and a face with square eyes appeared in her mind. Nangong Yuni guessed that Yun Luofeng had already thought of this person, and the corners of her lips rose slightly. Shuedong, that bookworm's family runs a pharmacy, but it's just a private pharmacy. You have so many elixirs, you can completely sell them at the pharmacy. At that time, even if you set a high price, people will come to buy them. Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed lightly. That's right. This is indeed a good idea. Also, I know that your grandfather's status is quite high, and you should know quite a lot of people. Help me book a private room in the Spring Garden restaurant. I want to bring my teacher there for a meal. Spring Garden Snow was one of the more famous restaurants in the capital. If you wanted to book a private room, you had to book it a year in advance. However, with the identity of Nangong Yuni's grandfather here, it wouldn't be a problem. Haha, my grandfather mentioned you just now. He said that he wanted to thank you properly. If you want to ask him for help, he would be more than happy to help you. Nangong Yuni's voice was very cheerful. His mood was also very good. That's right, Yun Luofeng, Hong Luan has already agreed to my proposal. In the end, Nangong Yuni added another sentence. Hearing this, the corners of Yun Luofeng's lips curled up and a smile appeared on his face. Then congratulations. However, this isn't the 7 continents, this is Wuxia. Back then, you even chased after the Department Beauty of Wuxia Academy. Unfortunately, that Department Beauty thought that your family was ordinary and wasn't willing to accept you. If she knew that you were the grandson of the old leader, she would definitely come back to find you. At that time, would you leave with her? Nangong Uni chuckled twice. At that time, I was also in love for the first time. I didn't understand these things until I met Hong Luan. Only then did I realize that she was the person I wanted to pursue in this life. Chapter 2188. So, I won't abandon her like anyone else. Otherwise, you can beat me to death at any time. Nangong Uni's voice was filled with flattery, which made Yun Luofeng's heart relax. If asked who her most important friend was in the 7 continents, she would choose Hong Luan without hesitation. Therefore, she really hoped that Hong Luan could be happy. You know my master. If you want to come, you can come at any time. We'll wait for you at Spring Garden Snow. After saying this, Yun Luofeng hung up the phone, pushed open the door and walked out. When she pushed open the bathroom door, she found Fu Qing eavesdropping on them. In that instant, Yun Luofeng helplessly face-palmed. What are you doing here? Fu Qing laughed awkwardly. I wanted to hear who you were calling. Nangong Uni. The corners of Yun Luofeng's lips rose, and a smile appeared on her face. What? Senior Nangong? Fu Qing jumped in surprise. Is he still alive like you? Oh right, I remember that Senior Nangong pursued you for a period of time. Why didn't you develop anything? As soon as she said this, a cold aura came from the side, and Yun Luofeng's body was instantly pulled into an embrace. Yun Zhao's expression was very ugly. He pursued you? Yes. Yun Luofeng blinked. What's wrong? He should be glad that you didn't accept him. The man's voice was low and hoarse, but it was cold. Otherwise, I would have killed him. Fu Qing was originally frightened by Yun Zhao's aura, but after hearing this, she came back to her senses and said weakly, Did I say something wrong? This man was too terrifying. How could Sister Luofeng stand him? Teacher. Yun Luofeng's gaze turned, and saw Fu Ru walking out of the kitchen, and said, Let's go. I've already booked a private room. Fu Ru hesitated for a moment, then nodded lightly, Okay. He began to weigh the money in his pocket, whether it was enough to cover the expenses this time. At this moment, in a luxurious villa, Nangong Lan sat angrily on the sofa, her delicate little face full of anger. She said very unwillingly, Mom, why isn't that old thing dead yet? Did the people you sent not hit it hard enough? Zhao Meishua's expression didn't look too good either. Logically speaking, such a heavy injury shouldn't be able to be healed. Who exactly is that Yun Luofeng? How did you manage to save the heavily injured old man? Hearing this, Nangong Lan fiercely bit her lips. I know Yun Luofeng. She's also a rather famous student at Wuxia University. I heard that she also disappeared in the explosion 5 years ago. I didn't expect her to actually return with Nangong Uni. Oh? Zhao Meishue raised her eyebrows and asked, Do you know who Yun Luofeng is? At the mention of Yun Luofeng, Nangong Lan's eyes flashed with disdain. It's said that Yun Luofeng's parents died when she was young, and she was adopted by her aunt and uncle, who knew that she was an ingrate. She lived in her aunt and uncle's house and even bullied her uncle's son. Because she was jealous of her aunt and uncle's love for her son, she almost strangled an innocent child to death. More importantly, her aunt and uncle didn't touch a single cent of the family property that her parents had left behind, and kept it all for her. But this ingrate framed her aunt and uncle for seizing her property. In the end, her aunt and uncle were so angry that they donated all of their property, not leaving a single cent for her. Chapter 2189. Tell me, what kind of person is this kind of woman? Nangong Lan was full of resentment. Indeed, what kind of person is worthy of befriending? Nangong Uni isn't a good person either. Our Nangong family raised him, but he doesn't know how to be grateful. He's worse than a beast. Zhao Meishua's eyes flashed, but she didn't say much. She smiled and said, Lan'er, you're tired. Go and rest first. Mom will think of a way to get rid of that old man. Okay. Nangong Lan nodded. That old man is my grandfather. I shouldn't want him to die, but he only has eyes for Nangong Uni. That little bastard. If he didn't want to let Nangong Uni inherit everything in the Nangong family, we wouldn't have treated him like this. Thinking of this, Nan Gonglan felt a little better and a vicious glint flashed across her eyes. Zhao Meishue closed her eyes gently. Lan'er, remember, the Nangong family will only be ours. She would never give it to anyone else. Nan Gonglan bit her lips and walked up the stairs. Soon she reached the second floor. After Nan Gonglan left, Zhao Meishue opened her eyes and took out her phone to make a call. Hello. A low voice came from the other end of the phone, causing Zhao Meishue to tighten her grip on the phone. Seeing that Zhao Meishue didn't say anything, the person on the other end said, Aren't you afraid that the Nangong family will see you calling me in broad daylight? Zhao Meishue pursed her lips. I miss you. And that damn old man isn't dead. What? Not dead? How was that possible? He had done it flawlessly. This old man would definitely die, and no one would be able to trace it back to him. A young lady called Yun Luofeng saved him, Zhao Meishue said as she lowered her eyes slightly. The person on the other end of the phone didn't speak for a long time. After a while, he said, Then why are you looking for me now? I want you to help me create an accident again. This time, I don't believe that he won't die. Zhao Meishue's eyes flashed with viciousness as she gritted her teeth. The person was silent for a moment. It's already not easy to create an accident once. If there's a next time, it won't be so easy. I don't care, you must help me. Even if it wasn't for me, it was for our daughter. Could it be that you have the heart to see her being bullied by that stinking brat Nangong Uni in the Nangong family? As long as the old man is dead, I will deal with Nangong Chuan. Nangong Chuan is your husband. Can you really bear to do that? So what? I only want the wealth of the Nangong family. What happens to others has nothing to do with me. Besides, the person I love has always been you. If it wasn't for the Nangong nobles, why would I have chosen to marry Nangong Chuan? Perhaps she was afraid that the man in front of her would be dissatisfied. Zhao Meishue hurriedly added another sentence. Her voice was very gentle, so gentle that it made the man's bones soften. The man in front of her didn't speak for a long time. Just when Zhao Meishue thought he wasn't going to speak again, that deep voice sounded again. Lan'er still doesn't know that she's my daughter? That's right. I can't tell her for now. Otherwise, she won't be able to take the blow. All right? The man pondered for a moment. I will help you. But I also have a part in this Nangong family. A cold light flashed in Zhao Meishue's eyes, but her voice was still gentle. That's only natural. After all, you're the only man I've ever loved deeply in my life. Isn't what's mine yours? Chapter 2190. The man on the other end of the line said something to Zhao Meishue before the call was hung up. After she hung up the phone, a cold light flashed in her eyes. She laughed icily and said, Men are really stupid. Nangong Chuan is like that, and so is he. I've played them both like a fiddle. Who is it? Suddenly, Zhao Meishue seemed to have sensed something. She immediately turned her head and saw a little hamster running right in front of her. Zhao Meishue frowned. Why is there a hamster in the villa? Looks like I need to get someone to clean it up. She didn't care about a little hamster. Anyway, the little hamster didn't understand human language. It had no idea what she was talking about just now. But why did the little hamster look like a recording pen in its mouth just now? At this thought, Zhao Meishue couldn't help but laugh. She must have seen wrongly. Why would a hamster run around with a recording pen in its mouth? This clearly didn't make sense. At this thought, Zhao Meishue didn't think any further. She walked up to the second floor, her high heels clacking against the ground, echoing throughout the empty villa. Spring garden snow. There were many luxury cars parked at the entrance. Hence, when Yun Luofeng and the others got out of the taxi, they instantly attracted countless gazes. Dad, Sister Luofeng. It was Fu Qing's first time in such a high-class restaurant. She subconsciously shrank back in fear. Especially now, she felt like she was in a zoo being watched. Luofeng, this. Fu Ru was also a little stunned. The place you booked is Spring Garden Snow. I remember that the private room can only be booked a year in advance. How did you get it? Yun Luofeng smiled. I asked Nangong for help. Nangong? Fu Ru blinked in shock. When did Nangong become so powerful? But, thinking of the tens of thousands of yuan left in her bank card, Fu Ru gritted her teeth and walked in. That tens of thousands of yuan should be enough for today's meal, right? She was waiting to celebrate the return of her student and let Qing enjoy a good meal. Of course, Yun Luofeng didn't know what Fu Ru was thinking. She held Yun Yanfeng and Yun Chutian with one hand and Yun Xiao by her side. The group walked towards the restaurant. Swoosh! At this moment, screams came from behind. Yun Chutian, who was originally by Yun Luofeng's side, looked over curiously. His beautiful eyes were full of amazement. It was a red sports car. It stopped at an extremely fast speed. Shortly after, the door of the sports car was opened, and a man and a woman walked out of the sports car. The man was wearing a black leather jacket and looked quite handsome. The woman beside him was wearing a strapless dress, and her curves could be seen when she bent down. Ah! Yun Chutian's eyes, which were originally filled with amazement, immediately covered Yun Yanfeng's eyes with his small hands when he saw the woman in such a revealing outfit. Day yelled. They had been in Wuxia for a long time and had seen many people who wore revealing clothes. But the woman in front of them had revealed everything that should be revealed. It was no wonder that Yun Chutian would have such a reaction. Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao looked at each other. It looked like these two little fellows were getting along better than they had expected. Yun up. Yun 1 Yun I 1 1. Chapter 2191. Oh, I was wondering who it was. So it's Fu Qing from our school. The scantily clad woman held onto the man next to her and walked arrogantly toward Fu Qing. Her expression was arrogant, but her eyes were full of disdain. Don't tell me you're here to spend money at Spring Garden Snow? Do you think that little bit of money you have is enough for a meal at Spring Garden Snow? Yun Luofeng, who was about to leave, paused when he heard this and turned to look at Fu Qing. You know her? Fu Qing nodded with difficulty. She's my classmate at Wuxia University. Classmate? Yun Luofeng's eyes flickered, and a cold glint flashed across his eyes. Sister Luofeng, brother-in-law, let's go. Don't worry about her. Fu Qing gritted her teeth and said, Hey! Seeing that Fu Qing was about to leave, the woman flew into a rage and said angrily, Fu Qing, how dare you ignore me? Do you believe that I won't tell the whole school that you've found a sugar daddy outside? If you didn't find a sugar daddy, how could a poor bitch like you come to a place like Spring Garden Snow? Fu Qing clenched her fists tightly. There were a few times when she wanted to lose her temper, but she finally held it in and was about to walk into Spring Garden Snow. The woman was furious. She raised her hand and wanted to grab Fu Qing. But before she could touch Fu Qing, she was grabbed by a hand. Say what you just said again? Yun Luofeng's voice was demonic and cold, causing the woman to shiver all over. She quickly calmed down and looked up at the woman who was threatening her. What do you want? The man beside her wanted to say something when he saw that his female companion was being bullied. Who knew that when his gaze landed on Yun Luofeng's face, he could no longer speak. The woman in front of him was too beautiful, and she had a demonic aura that could easily captivate people. After a while, the man returned to his senses, and his lips curled into a smile. Miss, do you know what price you have to pay for attacking my female companion? But, seeing that you're not bad-looking, if you're willing to spend a night with me, I'll let you go. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding air turned cold, and a cold aura flowed in the air. Fu Rue was a little anxious. She quickly walked in front of Yun Luofeng and said, Luofeng, you must not agree to him. Teacher will make the decision for you. Oh, so you're a teacher? The man sneered and said sarcastically, Is being a teacher very powerful? I hate teachers the most in my life. If I don't break your leg today, I'll change my surname to yours. After saying that, the man raised his leg and wanted to kick Fu Rue. Fu Rue was so scared that her face turned pale, but she still didn't move. Bang! Suddenly, a large hand grabbed the man's foot and exerted force. In an instant, a ghostly wail and wolf howl rang out, scaring the surrounding people into hurriedly moving away for fear that they would be affected. Ah! My leg! My leg! The man's voice was heart-wrenching. His handsome face was contorted and his eyes were bloodshot. The female companion who had previously insulted Fu Qing was also scared out of her wits. She widened her eyes in astonishment and looked at the cold-looking man in disbelief. Compared to Yun Luofeng, this man was even more terrifying. Crippling his leg just because of a disagreement? Father, this person just insulted Mother. Don't let him off so easily. I suggest we cut off his tongue and see if he can still speak. Yun Yanfeng placed his hands on his hips and glared angrily at the man who was rolling on the ground. Chapter 2192. Yun Zhao's eyes were filled with murderous intent. Her face was expressionless and cold like a god of death. No, I was wrong. Please let me go, I was really wrong. After the man heard Yun Yanfeng's words, he hurriedly begged for mercy, afraid that Yun Xiao would really cut off his tongue in a fit of anger. He believed that this man would definitely do such a thing. Yun Luofeng tugged at Yun Xiao and shook his head at him. Soon after, he walked towards the man and lowered his face. He smiled soundlessly and said, "Remember, the reason why you're here today is all because of your female companion. If she hadn't randomly provoked others, you wouldn't have ended up like this." The scantily clad woman trembled and her face was filled with terror. Indeed, after Yun Luofeng's words fell, she clearly sensed the anger in the man's eyes. "Yun Xiao, let's go." Yun Luofeng slowly turned around and walked towards Chun Yuanshui. Perhaps it was because of this matter that the originally lively Fu Qing became silent. She didn't say a single word along the way. However, when she reached the door of the private room, she suddenly said in an extremely weak voice, "Sister Luofeng, I'm sorry. I've caused trouble for you again. 5 years ago, when Yun Luofeng was still around, she was bullied because of her weak personality. Every time, it was Yun Luofeng who stood up for her and beat up those who bullied her until they didn't dare to touch her again. It had always been like this since she was young. It had never changed." Yun Luofeng's footsteps paused. She didn't turn around and turned her back to the young girl behind her. "I can't protect you forever, so you must let yourself grow up. Only when you become strong will you not be bullied by others." Whether it was the 7 continents or Wuxia, this sentence was equally effective. In this world where people bullied the weak and feared the strong, only when they became strong enough would they not be bullied by others. "But Fu Qing gently pursed her lips, her expression somewhat gloomy. "Teacher is already old, he can't protect you forever, and I won't stay here forever either. In the future, you can only protect yourself." She didn't know if Fu Qing understood her words, but Yun Luofeng didn't say much and led Fu Qing into the private room. "Sir, would you like to order now or?" A waiter walked in and asked respectfully. "Teacher." Yun Luofeng turned to Fu Rui. "Nangong and his girlfriend will be here soon. Why don't we wait for them to arrive before ordering?" "Nangong has a girlfriend? Haha." Fu Rui laughed heartily, sweeping away her gloominess. "Okay, then we'll wait for them to arrive. You can leave first." The waiter smiled and left. When the door to the private room was closed, a series of cell phone ringtones rang. Fu Qing took out her phone and glanced at it. Her expression was a little awkward. "Sister Luofeng, she's my classmate." "Take it," Yun Luofeng said lightly. Ever since he saw that woman, Yun Luofeng had been very worried about Fu Qing's life at school. Now, he wanted to see why his classmates were looking for her. Fu Qing obediently picked up the phone and put it on speaker mode, so everyone could hear a voice coming from the other end of the phone. "Fu Qing, Song Xiaoyu just told me that you're also here at Spring Garden Shui?" The voice was very gentle, but it gave people a feeling that it was artificial. Yun Luofeng frowned slightly. "I did meet Song Xiaoyu at the entrance of Spring Garden Shui." Fu Qing bit her lip. Why are you looking for me?" Chapter 2193. It's like this. Today is our class gathering, and it's being held here at Spring Garden Snow. Xiaoyu also came for the gathering, but she had to leave at the last minute. "Do you mind if we join you?" The woman on the other end of the phone suggested kindly. Fu Qing sneered. They were probably here to watch her make a fool of herself. After all, everyone knew that her father was expelled from school, and her family was in decline. It was impossible for her to have spare money to eat at Spring Garden Snow. More importantly, she actually didn't know about the class gathering until now. Fu Qing, don't blame us for not informing you. The woman on the other end of the phone clearly considered this as well. She said, "This gathering is shared by all of us. We were afraid that you couldn't afford it, so we didn't inform you. Since you're here now, let's go together. Which room are you in?" Fu Qing pursed her lips. Just as she was about to refuse, Yun Luofeng's indifferent voice rang in her ears. "Let them come over." It seemed that it was time for her to help Fu Qing get rid of those hidden dangers, so that these people wouldn't bother her often. Okay. Fu Qing nodded lightly, then replied, "I'm in the Spring Pavilion. You guys come over." Not far away, in a private room, a petite and beautiful girl hung up the phone and made an okay gesture to the men and women in the room. "No problem," she agreed. "Right, she's in the Spring Pavilion." Spring Pavilion. Among the group of people, a shrewd-looking man was a little shocked. "Lin Chi, what's wrong?" The others also turned to this man. In fact, a place like Spring Garden Snow was not a place that ordinary people could set foot in. Just booking a private room required a year in advance. This time, they could only enter Spring Garden Snow with Lin Chi's help. Of course, the money for the gathering was also paid for by Lin Chi. The reason why he said that to Fu Qing was just to find an excuse. Lin Chi slowly came back to his senses, his eyes complicated. "The numbered private rooms we booked are just ordinary private rooms. However, there are 4 private rooms in Spring Garden Snow that can't be booked even if you have the money. Those private rooms are respectively Spring, Summer, Autumn, and Winter pavilions. Those who can enter these private rooms must have a very high status in China." "What?" The students were all shocked. The girl who had just called Fu Qing was called Pang Ziyue. She was shocked and said in disbelief, "Could it be that Fu Qing is a mistress? When did Fu Qing become a sugar daddy?" Pang Ziyue's expression was very conflicted, and she found it difficult to speak. "It was just when little you called me." She said that Fu Qing personally admitted that she had a sugar daddy, and it was that sugar daddy who booked the private room for her. When everyone heard this, they looked at each other, and the disdain in their eyes became even more intense. Fu Qing's luck is pretty good. It seems like she's not an ordinary rich man. He must be very powerful. "Don't say that." Pang Ziyue bit her lip. "Not all women want to be rich. At least I want to marry for love, not for bread. There are only a few women like Fu Qing. After all, if I have to sleep with someone I don't love, I'll definitely feel like dying." After hearing Pang Ziyue's words, the male students who had scoffed at Fu Qing looked at her in agreement. Fu Qing may look pure and clean, but she could actually do such a thing. You really couldn't know a person's face. No wonder her father could do something like rape a female student. Chapter 2194. "Let's go see Fu Qing now," Lin Chi said after a moment of silence. The others also stood up one after another, and under the guidance of the waiter, they walked towards the private room of the Spring Pavilion. At this moment, in the Spring Pavilion, Fu Qing was a little uneasy. Those classmates wouldn't be kind enough to tell her about the gathering. They must be here to see a joke. So, she suddenly regretted agreeing to Pang Ziyue. Not long after, there was a commotion outside the door. Just as Fu Qing looked up, a group of people pushed open the door of the private room and rushed in from the outside. "Fu Qing, I didn't expect you to be here." Pang Ziyue smiled slightly and slowly walked towards Fu Qing. The smile on her face was gentle, and there was a smile in her eyes. She wanted to see if the man who kept Fu Qing was also here. But after looking around, other than Fu Rue, who was a little older, the others were just a couple and 2 children. But Pang Ziyue knew Fu Rue, so she couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. "Daddy, Mommy." Yun Chutian curled his small mouth and snuggled into Yun Luofeng's arms. "Why did you let these people in? They emit a stench even more disgusting than beggars. It's really annoying." "You?" When had Lin Chi ever suffered such humiliation? Just as he was about to get angry, the man in front of him suddenly raised his head and swept a cold glance at him. This glance made Lin Chi's back break out in a cold sweat. His face was a little pale, and his lips trembled. He had never seen a person's gaze that could be so terrifying. Yun Zhao's head had been lowered, so the others didn't see his face clearly. Now, when the man raised his head, they just saw that handsome face that made people scream. Pang Ziyue was even more stunned. She had never seen such a good-looking man. He was so much better than those idols and celebrities. Pang Ziyue. Fu Qing naturally noticed Pang Ziyue's expression, and her face was a little angry. "He's my brother-in-law. How can you stare at a man?" Pang Ziyue's expression was a little awkward. She retracted her gaze and said, "I was just curious. Why would there be a man with such long hair? So I unconsciously took a few more glances. If I affected you, then I apologize." But she had to say that this man looked really good with long hair. Her heart skipped a few beats when she saw that handsome and cold face of his. "Fu Qing, your words are too much. Don't you know what kind of person Pang Ziyue is? How could she have designs on anyone else?" "That's right. Do you think everyone is like you?" He had no sense of propriety. "You should learn from Pang Ziyue what makes a good woman." Fu Qing was so angry that her face turned red. Tears of grievance were about to fall, but she endured it and glared at the group of people in front of her. Pa! Suddenly, Yun Luofeng's palm fiercely fell on the table. The originally incomparably hard table, under this palm of hers, broke into two. No one said anything. Pang Ziyue's eyes widened in horror as she stared at the peerlessly beautiful face in astonishment. The fear in her heart rendered her speechless. "If you want to stay, then keep quiet. If you don't want to stay, then get the hell out of here right now." The woman's voice was icy cold, and it revealed an awe-inspiring and murderous aura, causing the entire room to fall silent. Chapter 2195. Everyone was frightened by Yun Luofeng. They didn't say anything and sat down in silence. Bai Yen slapped the menu on the table. "I just heard on the phone that you guys are going Dutch for this gathering, right?" The corners of their mouths twitched. Those words were only used to deceive Fu Qing, so they didn't plan on going Dutch from the start. However, they could pay first and have Lin Chi transfer it to them when they got back. "We already made it very clear just now. It's going Dutch. If you guys want to participate, I'm afraid Fu Qing will have to pay a bit more." Pang Ziyue smiled slightly and explained with good intentions. "If that's the case, then I won't wait for Nangong. I'll order now." Yun Luofeng had already scanned through the contents of the menu. Now, he had even listed out the more expensive dishes. Every time she named a dish, Lin Chi paused for a moment. A trace of doubt flashed through his eyes. Although he didn't come to Spring Garden Snow often, he still came a few times a year to enjoy it. Why hadn't he heard of the dishes Yun Luofeng named before? But, although Spring Garden Snow's dishes were expensive, they were still within the range he could afford, so he didn't say much. "Teacher, can you drink?" Yun Luofeng looked up at Fu Rue and asked. Fu Rue was a little hesitant. She weighed the remaining balance in her card and shook her head in the end. "How about this, teacher? I heard Nangong talk about the wine here. Seems pretty good. Everyone can have a bottle." Yun Luofeng didn't seem to see Fu Rue's movements. She named a bottle of red wine and said, "That's it. You can leave." "All right, please wait a moment. The dishes will be served soon." The waiter bowed respectfully and retreated out the door. Not long after, the private room's door was pushed open. Nangong Yuni and Hong Luan walked in hand. When they saw so many people sitting there, they were stunned. "Nangong, you know Fu Qing. These people are all her classmates." When she said the last sentence, Yun Luofeng's tone clearly became indifferent. Nangong Yuni knew she had a problem with these people. He couldn't help but raise the corner of his lips. Little Qing's classmates? It doesn't look like much. As long as it was someone Yun Luofeng didn't like, Nangong Yuni wouldn't like either. Hence, when he saw these people, he couldn't help but mock them. "You!" Just as Lin Chi was about to get angry, the person next to him immediately pulled his sleeve, signaling him not to be impulsive. "I know this man. He's our senior from a few years ago, Nangong Yuni. He's pretty good at fighting, and he can take on all of us here by himself. News of the explosion at Wuxia Academy that year had been sealed, so the people outside didn't know the truth. Naturally, they didn't know that Nangong Uni had already been missing for 5 years. Suddenly, a scream was heard. Everyone turned to the source of the voice. Pang Ziyue's face was pale, cold sweat dripping down her face. She bit her lips tightly as she glared at Hong Luan. Hong Luan retracted her leg apologetically. I'm sorry. I didn't see your leg and accidentally stepped on you. I apologize. From the moment she entered the room, Hong Luan saw that this woman's eyes were very dishonest. She kept glancing at Yun Xiao, so she couldn't help but step on her foot on purpose. She even used her spiritual energy. One could imagine how heavy that foot was. It made Pang Ziyue feel as if a knife had pierced the back of her foot. It hurt so much that her entire body trembled. Chapter 2196. You must have done it on purpose. Pang Ziyue was a little angry. She suddenly stood up from her seat and said angrily. Hong Luan glanced at her indifferently. You've already apologized. If you insist that I did it on purpose, then I can't do anything about it. Moreover, you can let others see the shoes I'm wearing. You say that I stepped on you. Do you believe it? Pang Ziyue was so angry that her entire body was trembling. She couldn't even say a word. The others also stood up one after another and looked at Hong Luan. They clearly saw that pair of antique flats. Being stepped on by such shoes wouldn't cause much of a sensation. But Pang Ziyue's reaction was indeed a little exaggerated. Pang Ziyue also understood this point. She bit her lip tightly. I did react a little too violently just now because you stepped on me really hard. If I offended you, I'm very sorry. Hearing this, Hong Luan didn't say anything else. She sat down on her own and said with a smile, Luo Feng, I'm hungry. Have you ordered all the dishes? Yes, they'll be served very soon. Indeed, just as Yun Luo Feng finished speaking, the waiter came over with a plate of dishes. The aroma of the dishes instantly attracted everyone's attention. They also forgot about the quarrel just now and all began to eat. The entire dining atmosphere was rather harmonious. Those people didn't dare to say a word while eating, but their occasional disdainful gazes betrayed them. Time passed very quickly. In just a moment, all the dishes had been swept clean. When Yun Luo Feng shouted for the bill, the waiter slowly walked over with the bill in his hand. Hello, Mississippi. You've spent a total of 5 million this time. What? Lin Chi, who was wiping her lips, immediately jumped up in shock when she heard this. She said angrily, Are you tricking me? I've come to Spring Garden Snow many times. Each time it's at most 30 to 50,000. This time you're actually telling me that a single meal cost 5 million? If it was someone from another restaurant, they would definitely have snorted disdainfully when they heard this. However, the waiters in Spring Garden Snow Inn were rather polite and didn't feel unhappy because of this. Instead, they explained seriously. Sir, it's true that you've come to our Spring Garden Snow consumer country, but you've always been in an ordinary private room. Out of consideration for the customer's requirements, the dishes in an ordinary private room are more difficult to evaluate. Even if you order the best dish or the most expensive wine, it won't exceed 100,000 yuan. However, this is a VIP private room, so the dishes are different from those in ordinary private rooms. Lin Chi's face was very ugly. Indeed, these dishes were more exquisite and delicious than those he had eaten before, but the price was also ridiculously high. Sir, there are 30 people in each of your seats. Each bottle of red wine costs 100,000 yuan. So the price of red wine alone is already 3 million yuan. Lin Chi trembled even more. That bottle of red wine actually cost 100,000 yuan. That mouthful of his was like drinking RMB. Lin Chi, I don't care. Anyway, you said you're treating this time. One of the teenagers stood up first. So I won't take out a penny. Shut up. Lin Chi's eyes were bloodshot. He roared angrily. That's a few million, not a few yuan. Where the hell do you want me to find these millions? This money we have to split evenly. Don't think I'll be the fool. Don't be nervous. Pang Ziyue bit her lower lip and said softly, We've definitely been scammed. Isn't it just a bottle of wine? Why is it so expensive? It's almost the price of a small car. Chapter 2197. Shut up! Lin Qi shouted angrily. If you hadn't suggested looking for Fu Qing, would this have happened? That's right, it was Peng Ziyue who suggested looking for Fu Qing in the beginning. But what happened next was completely beyond their imagination. Luo Feng, this Fu Rui's expression was a little nervous. He didn't expect this meal to cost millions. Unless he sold his house, it would be difficult to pay off the money this time. Teacher, you don't have to worry. Nangong is here to pay the bill. Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders as the corners of his lips curled into a smile. As for the others, since we've agreed to split the bill, I'll have to trouble all of you to pay for this meal. Lin Qi clenched his fists tightly and took a deep breath. I don't have that much money. The others were silent. If it was a few thousand, they could still pay. But this was a few million. Even if it was divided among everyone, there would still be a lot left. Where would they find the money to pay? It's not that you don't have money. Yun Luofeng shrugged. I can let Nangong pay for you, but you need to write an IOU. If you want the debtor's name, write Fu Qing. Sister Luofeng. Fu Qing's eyes widened and she was at a loss. This isn't good. It's okay. You have the IOU in your hand. You can ask them for a raise at any time. This money is enough for you and teacher to live comfortably for the rest of your lives. Yun Luofeng smiled. More importantly, she was leaving this place. She couldn't protect Fu Qing for the rest of her life, so she could only use this method to make everyone owe her a debt. In order to prevent Fu Qing from asking them for a debt, this group of people wouldn't bully her from now on. Fu Qing felt a little complicated. She knew that if she hadn't been so worried, Yun Luofeng wouldn't have gone through so much trouble to help her. From now on, these people wouldn't bully her anymore. Thank you, Sister Luofeng. In the end, Fu Qing still agreed to this favor. When she graduated in the future, she would repay her. Moreover, this money, she would get it back no matter what. You don't have to thank me. If you want to thank someone, thank Nangong. It's his treat this time. Yun Luofeng curled his lips. Also, the date on that IOU is written 6 years. You will graduate in 3 years. You will also have 3 years to repay the debt. If you don't repay the debt in 3 years, you can only wait to be sued. Everyone's expressions were ugly, but they knew that if they didn't write this IOU, they wouldn't be able to leave Spring Garden Snow today. Therefore, they had no choice but to write an IOU. After writing the IOU, they hurriedly left. Yun Luofeng also handed the IOU to Fu Qing. If they bully you, you can find them at any time. It's getting late, let's go back. All right. Fu Qing solemnly nodded her head. Wait until she got her debt back. She would return it to Nangong Uni without leaving a single cent. When Yun Luofeng and the others walked out of Spring Garden Snow, the other students still hadn't left. However, they didn't dare to mock and ridicule them like before. They all remained silent and didn't say a word. Fu Qing, who was walking at the back of the crowd, suddenly saw a car charge towards Yun Luofeng. At this moment, everyone was a distance away from her. Even Yun Xiao was a few meters away. Careful! Fu Qing turned pale with fright and hastily shouted. Unfortunately, it was already too late. The car quickly charged in front of Yun Luofeng. Chapter 2198. Fu Rui's face was pale with fright and she couldn't even stand steadily. Fu Qing almost cried out. But, just when they thought Yun Luofeng would be hit by the car this time, a miracle suddenly happened. They saw the woman in the fluttering white dress suddenly stretch out her palm and with a loud bang, the car that was originally going to hit Yun Luofeng was immediately pushed away by her and flipped upside down. Shock! Everyone at the entrance of the restaurant was shocked by this move of hers. Especially Fu Qing's classmates. Each and every one of them covered their mouths in shock, unable to say a single word as their bodies trembled. How was this possible? How could a human have such great power that they could even flip over a car? For a moment, everyone felt their hairs stand on end. Those who had once opposed Fu Qing were deathly pale, afraid that Yun Luofeng would remember them. Feng Yun Xiao quickly walked to Yun Luofeng's side and examined her from head to toe. When he saw that she was safe and sound, he let out a sigh of relief. His callous gaze turned to the car that had crashed on the ground in front of him. He quickly walked forward and punched the car door. In that instant, the door immediately flew out, but there was no one in the car. Unable to find the culprit and unable to vent his anger, Yun Xiao kicked the car again. In an instant, the car was kicked 10 feet away and finally fell apart in front of everyone's eyes. Everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. This husband and wife, were they both freaks? The strength was too frightening. A driverless car? Nangong Yuni's eyes darkened. I think that someone is controlling this car from behind the scenes. They must be deliberately targeting Yun Luofeng. Looking at the wrecked car, the corners of Yun Luofeng's mouth slightly rose. Just now when we were eating, the gold-seeking rat brought the recording pen over. Are you interested in listening to it? Recording pen? Nangong Yuni was stunned. He knew that Hong Luan was suspicious of the mother and daughter, and also knew that Yun Luofeng had sent the gold-seeking rat to monitor them. But he didn't think that there would be results so quickly. Thinking of this, Nangong Yuni's gaze became somewhat complicated. Logically speaking, that mother and daughter had repeatedly humiliated him. He should have wanted nothing more than for the mother and daughter to lose all their standing and reputation. However, the person they wanted to deal with was his grandfather. If it was really done by them, how disappointed would grandfather be? You don't need to worry too much. Hong Luan patted Nangong Yuni's shoulder. I can see that your grandfather doesn't like them. Since he doesn't like them, why should he be bitterly disappointed? Nangong Yuni stared blankly for a moment before nodding in realization. That's right, if I don't like him, why would I be disappointed? Hong Luan, fallen maple. Let's go to the villa. Nangong Yuni's gaze darkened. He would never allow anyone to harm his grandfather again. Yun Luofeng nodded lightly and turned to the frightened Fu Rue. Teacher, I need to go and take care of some things. You can go back first. However, because of Nangong's matter, there has been some danger. I'll give my hamster to you. It will protect you. After saying this, Yun Luofeng took out 2 gold-seeking mice, 1 male and 1 female, and handed them to Fu Qing. If you are separated from the teacher, each of you must carry one with you. They will protect your safety. Fu Qing was astonished. She only knew that loyal dogs would protect people, but how could a hamster protect people? This kind of hamster, it seemed that if one accidentally stepped on it, they would immediately die. The gold-seeking rat sensed Fu Qing's disdain and bared its sharp teeth at her. That human-like expression scared Fu Qing. Chapter 2199. Chutian Nianfeng, you two go back with teacher. Yun Luofeng pondered for a while and said, Okay. Yun Chutian responded obediently, his voice soft and sweet. Yun Nianfeng was a little unwilling, but after seeing Yun Luofeng's determined expression, he could only nod with grievance. Mother, I'll wait for you to come back. After throwing Yun Nianfeng and Yun Chutian to Fu Rue, Yun Luofeng and Yun Xiao looked at each other and then turned to Nangong Yuni. Let's go. Ask your grandfather to come again. There'll be a good show soon. After saying this, her gaze seemed to subconsciously sweep to the distance, and the corners of her lips curled up. Not far away, the man hiding in the dark sensed Yun Luofeng's gaze and hurriedly turned his head back. His back involuntarily broke out in a layer of cold sweat. Finally, he gritted his teeth and dialed a number. Miyuki. This time, I was almost screwed over by you. A surprised voice came from the other side of the phone. What happened? The man pondered for a while and asked, Are you in the villa? I'll go find you now. This? Zhao Meishue was a little hesitant. That's not good. It won't be good if we're seen in broad daylight. Stop pretending. Haven't I gone to find you many times in the day? Now that the old man isn't in good health, Nangong Chuan can't leave, and your stepson is with his classmate. Lan isn't here either. What are you worried about? Hearing the man's words, Zhao Meishue hesitated for a while and gritted her teeth. Okay, come. Be careful to avoid some reporters. If their secret was exposed, she would immediately lose her reputation and Nangong Chuan wouldn't let her go. I know what I'm doing. After saying this, the man hung up the phone, ordered the driver to prepare the car, and walked down the tall building. Inside the villa, it was quiet. In order to have an affair, Zhao Meishue didn't leave any housekeepers. She even told Nan Gonglan not to come back. At this moment, Zhao Meishue sat on the European-style sofa. Her heart was swollen with worry, and her eyelids were twitching violently. She felt like something was about to happen. Suddenly, there was the sound of a key opening the door. Zhao Meishue got up and looked over. When she saw the man's handsome face, her lips curled into a smile and she walked over leisurely. "You came? What happened today to make you so angry?" The man's face darkened. "You asked me to deal with that woman called Yun Luofeng. Was that on purpose?" "What?" Zhao Meishue raised her beautiful eyes in astonishment. "What happened? Did you know that the woman pushed the car away with one punch? And the man beside her only used one kick to destroy the entire car." The man gritted his teeth, his ashen face filled with anger. Such a person was not someone they could afford to provoke. Boom! Zhao Meishue's head exploded with a bang. Her face was pale and bloodless. She laughed dryly and said, "Did you see wrongly? Sending a car flying with a punch. Is that something an ordinary person can do? Wrong?" The man sneered and grabbed Zhao Meishue's neck. "Are you calling me blind? How could I see wrongly?" "Zhao Meishue, what kind of enemy did you provoke? It's fine if you want to die, but why do you have to drag me down with you?" If he hadn't been vigilant and hadn't taken action himself, the outcome was clear. Chapter 2200. Zhao Meishue couldn't breathe. Her face turned the color of a pig's liver. Her hands and feet kept hitting the man. Her eyes filled with fear. The man finally loosened his grip. Zhao Meishue felt that she could breathe again. Her body fell heavily to the ground. She looked a little embarrassed as she looked at the man standing in front of her. "I really don't know." "Humph." The man snorted. "I can help you deal with Nangong Uni, but I will never provoke that woman again. Also, after I succeed, you need to give me a sum of money. I will leave China immediately." "Okay." Zhao Meishue gritted her teeth. "I promise you." As long as she could make Nangong Uni disappear, she didn't need to care about anything else. The man's gaze swept over and saw Zhao Meishue's heaving chest. An evil light flashed in his eyes. He strode forward and lifted Zhao Meishue up. He said in a low voice, "I can't make this trip for nothing. You need to serve me." "Now?" Zhao Meishue was stunned. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Okay." She had to coax this man first before discussing other things with him. Can we go to the room? Women are always troublesome." The man's voice sounded a little impatient, but he still obeyed Zhao Meishue. "Hurry up. I'll leave after we're done." Zhao Meishue smiled sweetly. She tidied up her messy hair and walked to the second floor. On the luxurious European-style bed, the man worked hard on the bed. The beautiful woman below him was drenched in sweat and panting heavily. "Hurry up. Lanner will be back soon." Zhao Meishue urged anxiously when she realized that it was getting late. After the man vented, he left Zhao Meishue's body. His expression became more and more impatient. "Lanner is my daughter. So what if I, as her father, see her? But Master Nangong Chuan is really stupid. He raised someone else's daughter for more than 10 years. He's so stupid. I really don't know that Nangong Group hasn't collapsed in the hands of this idiot." Zhao Meishue bit her lips. She looked at the man in front of her. "I've satisfied you. You can leave now." This time, the man didn't say anything. He walked to the door and pulled it open. Originally, Zhao Meishue wanted to go out with the man, but suddenly saw several figures standing at the door. She was so scared that she screamed, "Ah, ah, ah," at the door of the room. Old Master Nangong's face was ashen as he glared at the naked Zhao Meishue. His face was burning with rage. Zhao Meishue's voice was anxious. She hurriedly put on her clothes and said, "Dad, listen to me." "Explain." The old man snorted coldly, his face ashen. "What else is there to explain? Uni, call your dad now and ask him to come back and see his wife." Then bring Nangong Lan back as well. Our Nangong family is not stupid enough to raise a child for someone else. Zhao Meishua's body went limp and she lay on the ground in a sorry state. If she was only caught in bed, she could still keep Nangong Lan in the Nangong family. This way, there would be hope for her to seize the family's wealth. But now, did the old man overhear their conversation in the room? How long had he been standing there for? Zhao Meishua bit her lips. Her face was pale. She hated the man beside her who also had an ugly expression. If he hadn't come to find her, how could this have happened?